Good afternoon. I guess it's still afternoon or evening. Welcome to the County Council meeting. I'll call the July 17th, 2023 County Council meeting to order. July 17th is a special day. It is one of our council members' birthday, so I'll recognize Miss Debbie Cloninger. Congratulations on another year. Another year around the sun. At this time, I'm going to recognize Watts Huckabee, who will lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for the opportunity for all the council members to serve our constituents. Just thank you for the government, officials, public officials, members of management, for their citizens. We just thank you for their involvement. So, Lord, just bless this meeting, look over us, grant us wisdom, so we do the business of it.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I didn't do this when I first started, but I want to welcome everyone. I've already got people who are saying they can't hear us, so let's make sure, council members, when you talk, you need to talk straight into the mic. Can everybody hear us? Okay. Good to have you all here tonight. It's always good to have a group of folks in our community coming out to our council meetings to listen. There's a lot of stuff that we do here that you don't ever see anybody, not a single soul in here. And we have a big packed crowd tonight. We're glad that you're here. We're looking forward to hear what you have to say. We're going to move through our agenda quickly because we do have a big agenda tonight. We will start with our oath of office for newly appointed board and commission members. We have John Robinson with York County Board of Disabilities and Special Needs, who has been appointed from District 6. If he is here, and I understand that we have overflow backed up, thank you, sir. If you'll come forward and stand right at the podium, our county attorney will join you at the front of the room. And I do want to say this on behalf of our entire council. We very much appreciate the service that you provide to the county. You do it without being paid, and you very rarely get thanked at all for what you do. But we do appreciate the service that you provide to our county because we can't conduct business without making sure our boards and commissions are doing that. We appreciate you doing that.
I do solemnly swear
that
I'm duly qualified
according to the Constitution of this state
according to the Constitution of this state
to exercise the duties of the office
to exercise the duties of this office
to which I have been appointed,
to which I have been appointed,
and I will, to the best of my ability,
and I will, to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of this state
the Constitution of this state
and of the United States.
and the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. We move now to our appearances section of the agenda, and I understand that Ms. Sherry Farrell is going to come forward. I'm going to recognize her, and that she is going to help us recognize two very special folks that are going to be retiring soon from York County Retirement, Lisa Schillinglaw and Donna Hawkins. If you folks would please make your way up to the front.
Good evening. I want to thank county management and county council for giving the clerk of court the opportunity to acknowledge two very special ladies, excuse me if I cry, of their years of service and upcoming retirement. Angie Bryant has another commitment tonight and asked me to speak on behalf of the clerk of court. My name is Sherry Farrell, and I am the Chief Deputy Clerk of Court, and it is my honor to acknowledge Donna Hawkins and Lisa Schillinglaw and congratulate them both on their deserved retirements. Lisa Schillinglaw started working for the Clerk of Court's office in 1998 with a dual role within Common Pleas and Register of Deeds office. until she was hired to work as an admin assistant for Common Pleas Division and quickly advanced to lead person. She was promoted in 2005 to associate deputy. Lisa was the key person to train new employees and did so great with pride to ensure everyone not only knew what they were doing, but they also understood why they were doing it. Lisa plans to spend time with her family and find some new hobbies and travel as much as possible. Donna Hawkins attended Rock Hill High School and graduated in 1997 at the age 77. 1977, excuse me, at the age of 17 after skipping the 11th grade, and then graduated from York Tech in 1979. She began her career with the Clerk of Court's office, initially through a temporary agency, and then became a full-time employee on June the 13th, 1989. She was promoted just a short year later to deputy clerk for Common Pleas and has remained in that position for over 33 years. That is quite an achievement. Through the years, Donna has taught Sunday school and children's church and enjoys singing in the church choir. Donna plans to spend time with family and to travel with her husband, Wade. We want to thank both of you for your many years of dedication and service to the Clerk of Court in York County. You will both be missed, but we are happy for your opportunity to retire and enjoy the next chapter in your lives. York County has asked that I present you with their retirement gift and thank you for your service. Congratulations to you both. I don't want to write this. This is on behalf of York County. Lisa. Miss Donna. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. You have earned the right to the mic if you would like to do that. If you do not want to do that, then we still would like for you to stay just a minute. Let's get a picture with council.
Thank you.
Would either of you like to speak?
No, ma'am.
Well, we would like to have our pictures taken with you, and on behalf of the council, I want to extend congratulations on you on well-earned retirement. I'm sad to see you go. I mean, our court system is one of the most important areas that we have got to have good folks serving us. And if Angie were here, I would say, what are you doing, running people off already? And you just got, sworn into office. But I know that you guys have probably been waiting for the prime opportunity to do that. We wish you well in your retirement. We thank you so much for your service to our community. If y'all come forward, we'll just have the council scoot in and take a picture. Over 55 years, if I did my math right. I think my daughter was born one year when y'all started, so I didn't think it was that long, but it is.
We'll do one with just them, and then we'll bring in staff.
Thank you.
Okay. Y'all want to come in? Is your family here? Husbands or? Yeah.
There you go. Couldn't get out of that one, brother. There you go.
This is actually a birthday picture.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, this is your
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, ladies. I am now going to recognize Neil Brennan with Lake Wiley Marine Commission, who will provide us the commission's annual update.
Good evening. My name is Neil Brennan. I'm the Executive Director of the Lake Wiley Marine Commission. I'm pleased to be here to speak with you all tonight and tell you a little bit about what we've been doing. Our mission has not changed. We're here to promote public policies and support the regulations to preserve Lake Wiley, the wildlife, and to educate the citizens about safety and how to use this beautiful natural resource. I'm going to talk about these areas tonight, and I'll hopefully explain to you a little bit about how we're fulfilling our mission as I go through these various topics. life jacket program. We provide life jackets to the various law enforcement agencies here on the lake so that if they come across someone on the lake doesn't have the right one, the right size, or not one at all, they can provide one to the boater so the boater doesn't have to go back and get one. South Carolina takes care of all their buoys. Danger buoys, no wake buoys. We'll screen an application and send it forward, and the South Carolina DNR will take care of approving or disapproving. In North Carolina, we are charged by law to maintain and place all the no wake buoys. The state takes care of the danger buoys. So we do that. We have a contract that does that to try to keep on all those buoys. For the environment, Lake Wylie joined the Catawba Riverkeeper a couple of years ago. We used to run the whole thing ourselves just for Lake Wylie. They said, we'd like to take it over. I said, permission granted, thank you very much. Glad to have you do that. We're scheduled for the 7th of October this year. Last year we got weathered out because of Hurricane Ian. Now, York Gas and the Mecklenburg counties provide our dumpsters. We get bags from the Department of Transportation. We get donations of grabbers and bottled water and so on. So when people go out on the first Saturday in October, they're well hydrated. Hydrilla control had a real batch of it up in the northern part of the lake, up in Belmont area, 9 acres of the stuff last year. They treated it with carp, sterile carp that's brought in the truck. You see there, they pump it into the, and those fish eat that stuff down. They had to also use some herbicide. Now we partner with Duke and the state in providing funds for that project. There was none found in the South Carolina waters of Lake Wylie last year, so we'll see how that goes. Now, the other problem we do have is this alligator weed. That's a really invasive species also. The carp don't eat that. We got these bugs called thrips that didn't survive the winter a couple of years ago. Now they got some that did. I don't know what they fed them, but they eat down the xylem and the roots and try to get after this stuff and eat it down. Long-term project. The only way to get rid of this stuff is yank it out. So you got it in your area, and there has been some of this in the coves back in Mill Creek and Crowder's Creek. A little bit of it. Clean Marina program. A couple of years ago, North Carolina took over the program in North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. We handle it for South Carolina, and we inspect the marinas on Lake Wylie for these topics, and if they make the muster, we give them a Lake Wylie Clean Marina flag that they can fly. Every 2 years we do that. In the folder that I gave you all, there's a copy of this water quality report that we get from Charlotte Water every couple of months. You can see the parameters that they investigate and sample for. We also are part of the swim guide program put out by the Catawba Riverkeeper. They get these things a little more frequently. This is done every 2 months. So July's coming up. We don't have that one yet. But the swim guide program, Catawba Riverkeeper samples various swim locations around the lake on Thursdays, come out on Friday. If one of them's not good, suitable, they put it on their website, don't swim there. So we help pay for some of that as well. That's the swim guide program. Law enforcement, we provide money for some unbudgeted funds for the law enforcement folks. Recently, we provided medical equipment to have on the boats for the folks to go out and use as they see fit. We're also purchasing a side-mounted sonar to help where they need that for various recovery evolutions. And recently, North Carolina Wildlife reported that one of the boats didn't have any running lights at night. Their lights either didn't work, so we have bought 1,000 red, green, and white construction-grade chem lights, so that, and we've distributed among the water law enforcement people so that if they come across anybody, the lights are out, they can hand them these things so they don't have to again tow them back in or accompany them back in. They can rig these things that last for 8 hours. So that's, and the other thing, I've briefed you all over the years about this FERC application for a boathouse from the northern end of the lake for the Gaston County. We provided some support over the years for the York County Sheriff's Department boathouse, maintenance and insurance and so on. You all have taken that over. Mecklenburg's got a boathouse. Gaston County didn't have one. So along with a FERC permit that the city of Belmont has put forward for a park, we asked if they'd like to have the police up there too. They said sure. So that thing is in the last couple of reviews, we're told. Of course, I said that last year, but maybe it'll happen this year. And we've ponied up about $125,000 for seed money for that boathouse when they get ready to build that. I want to talk to you about a federal law that doesn't make any sense. Maybe y'all can help us with this. It's called the No-Rise Certification Law. This law was put forward in 1976, and recently somebody decided it was a good idea that we invoke this law for anybody who wanted to build a dock. And what that law says is, for any new construction, which now includes docks apparently, you have to have a hydrologic and a hydraulic analysis performed in accordance with standard engineering practices in order to prove that this dock that you put in is not going to result in any increase in the flood levels during the 100-year flood. Now, this law doesn't make a whole lot of sense. In your package that I provided to you is a letter that we wrote back in January to Representative Norman and to Representative Jackson, and infoed all the U.S. senators, said, hey, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I've talked to Perry Johnston here, who builds docks down in this neck of the woods, and to Bob Wilson, who builds them up in the north end of the lake and on Lake Norman. He said, I can't build a dock that would trip this. I contacted the people in the flood insurance business who oversee this program, and there's a dialogue I had in there with them asking questions about, well, how many docks would it take? They always come back to you got to do this, analysis. They cost about $10,000. I think this is a ridiculous expenditure for a citizen who wants to enjoy the lake, and I've asked them to rescind this law for Lake Wylie, given the restrictions that Duke places on the size of docks that we can build here. I don't know if we're going to win that one, but, you run it up the flagpole, we'll see if anybody salutes. We did have a little more success with instituting some regulations following South Carolina's lead with regard to idle speed regulations. Last year, the state legislature renewed the regulation that says you can't go within 50 feet of anybody's dock at greater than idle speed. And they also said if y'all want to wake surf, stay 200 feet away. We had many complaints, the Hatfields and McCoys, the wake surfers and the non-wake surfers, at one of our meetings about, hey, you're ruining my deck, you're ruining my shoreline, you guys got to stand off. Well, South Carolina passed a law. It says you got to stand off 200 feet. That's the Water Sports Industry Association standard and the North Carolina Wildlife Standard as well, but we didn't have the law in North Carolina. So we enacted it ourselves. Given the charter that we have that was set up by state law, we, Lake Wylie Marine Commission, have the authority to enact regulations, so we followed suit. And we enacted these regulations for the northern waters of Lake Wylie. So now it's lake-wide. And we were required to post this, and in your folder that I gave you is a copy of the poster that we put up. This is the poster here. And we thought it would be a good idea not just to follow the law to the letter, which says you got to post the new regulation. We thought it would be a good idea if we posted not just the new regulation, but all the regulations regarding wake surfing, public watercraft, personal watercraft, and so on. So that's a copy of what you have there. I also attached in your folder is a little card that we printed up for the law enforcement people to hand out to people as well. They can put it in their wallet, take them with them. It's a little like a business card that's hard to read, but if you squint, you can see it. Everything is on there. Now, before we enacted these regulations, we went to the law enforcement people on the lake and said, hey, if we do this, will you enforce it? And their answer was, any regulation that's lawfully enacted, we will enforce. Well, that's what the law says, so we did it, and now it's lake-wide. It'll take a while for this to sink into everybody, but we're doing our best to get the word out. That's the personal watercraft. There is a bit of a difference between North and South Carolina. These laws were already on the books. We didn't have to mess with these. 100 feet in North Carolina, 50 feet in South Carolina, and it's It's the same in South Carolina, 50 feet for everything. So that's that. Now, the other thing that's come to light recently is, do we need any regulations regarding boat rentals? Lake Norman has got some rental regulations they're considering, and what brought this to light was a report from the York County Sheriff's Office at our last meeting, where some people were rented a boat to take them out to one of the islands down here and left them there. And the York County Sheriff's Office had to go out and retrieve them. Apparently the guy forgot he was there or whatever. Anyway, we don't know the pedigree of this guy that did that, but we may have some rogue renters out there. So our attorney is the same attorney for Lake Norman. What we're going to do is take a look at this thing, see if it makes sense for us to issue permits or not, issue regulations or not, and we'll follow the same procedure that we did with these idle speed regulations. That is to talk to the law enforcement about it first. Will you support it or not? If so, yes. And then brief you all. And as long as you and Mecklenburg County and Gaston County are okay with it, then we'll proceed. The nice thing about this is you don't have to vote on it. We do. We can do this on our own, but we're not about to do it without letting you all know and having you all have a say. That's just kind of common sense. Sedimentation, I've talked to this about a cancer on the lake. We took some boat tours last year with some Belmont city officials, some Mecklenburg County people, invited some of the Gaston County to come along too. Want to do that for you all in September, maybe when it's a little cooler, to show you some of the areas where there is some sedimentation buildup. In your folder, I also provided pictures of various spots of sedimentation buildup. Some of these people can't use the docks anymore, okay? And the only thing I can do is dredge it, and it's a real problem. We're getting a lot of this stuff from upstream on the York South Fork River, from Lincoln County, Catawba County, and we're participating in the South Fork River Health Committee that I briefed you on last time. We're trying to get some of the same enhanced stormwater erosion control measures in place that you all have adopted a couple of years ago. Catawba Riverkeeper says you all are the poster child for erosion and stormwater control for major developments. Mecklenburg County's got a good program. Gaston County, not so much. So we're trying to enhance that and go about increasing the rules there to save this beautiful body of water that we've got. There are some areas of sediment that I've talked about. As far as education, we participate in the Catawba Water Management Group. January through March, there's a section about Lake Wylie, history, so on, and we have a little 15-minute presentation on what we do as the Lake Wylie Marine Commission. Got a monthly newsletter that we put out. You go to our LakeWylieMarineCommission.com, down in the lower right-hand letter area, there's a news area. Click on that. We'll send you the newsletter if you like it. And we also go to the boat shows and so on. And we also invoked the guy who gives us these water samples from Charlotte-Mecklenburg, said, hey, can you explain why Lake Wylie's so brown? And he did. And there's a really neat little 10 or 15-minute presentation on there about why our lake is brown a lot of the time. So again, educating the people has to do with the shape of the lake and all that good stuff. If you're interested, click on it and see what it's all about. That's what we've been doing with the money you give us for the last year or so. We'll tilt at some windmills and maybe win some, and a couple of we did. Do you have any questions for me?
No, just a compliment. You know, each presentation you do each year is excellent, so keep up the great work. Nice job.
Thank you, sir. We
Thank you,
appreciate
sir.
being here tonight.
Appreciate being here. Thank you for attending and listening to me.
I'll now recognize Beth White with York County Farm Bureau. And we do have overflow, so it takes a little while for some of these folks to make it here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Beth White, and I'm here tonight on behalf of York County Farm Bureau and the farmers in York County. And we would just like to say thank you and applaud you for your continued support. We appreciate you more than you ever know. We're thankful that you always take the time to hear our concerns, and we understand what a hard job you have, but we appreciate your passion and your dedication to helping people and to our great county. Agriculture is what our county was founded on, and it continues to be the #1 industry in South Carolina. And it has always been in a state of change, and it continues to do so. I'm sure you can tell in our county that it's changed a lot. But we still need your help to have a sustainable future for York County. We have more small farmers popping up in our county than ever before, especially meat producers. We have gone from mom and pop farms to lifestyle farms. Lifestyle farmers are those who desire to keep farmland in a natural state while making food, fiber, and aesthetic crops such as flowers for our friends in the city. We cannot continue this endeavor of keeping this county aesthetically pleasing to the influx of new citizens without your assistance. Agriculture, education, and land conservation are keys to keeping our county sustainable. I read an Indian Cree proverb that really hit home to me and made me think about the continuous development that's happening within our county. And it goes like this: only when the last tree has been cut down, the last fish has been caught, the last stream has been poisoned, only then will we realize that we cannot eat money. And this rings so true in today's times. And I want you to continue to help us be the county that rise above material waste. Thank you again, and we so appreciate your help. And if you need anything, always please reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. We appreciate all of the goodies that you brought up. It's so neat to see all of the goodies that our local farms bring and how important it is. You can't eat money. That's a slogan I think one of our council members probably could. He says it in about 4 paragraphs, but we could probably reduce it down to a slogan, right? We now have Catherine Jones with York County Parks and Rec to provide us an update on county parks.
Good evening, Council Chair, members of Council. Thank you for having me tonight to provide you an update. I'm going to be mindful of time because I know you have a long meeting ahead of you. So we will just jump right in. Tonight I'm going to talk about really our active park projects and a few minor park operations updates that we have. So to start with, on the operational side of things, you'll have before you tonight a fee ordinance update. It'll be the first reading. There's a number of fees. It's not a tremendous amount. A lot of it's establishing fees as we are building our operation and evolving as a parks department. We're needing to add fees. Really the only increase is a reservation fee for camping reservations and picnic shelter reservations, and that is being passed on to us by this software company that we use for that. It's only a $1 increase, and again, that's being passed on to us, so therefore we need to update it in our fee ordinance. Also, just something to put on your radar that I have looked into is revising the regulations ordinance, which is code 90.01. That is what, those are the regulations for our public boat landings and our parks. The last revision was made in 2015. Prior to that was 1985. So now that we're into parks and we are growing our parks, we need to look at that and update it. And so we've started the process with that, have had an initial meeting with the Sheriff's Department, thanks to Nathan Clark and Stephanie there, that she's the attorney in the Sheriff's Department. And so we are just starting those conversations and revisiting that ordinance, and we will go through the process of adding hours. There's a lot of things that just aren't in there that should be in there for the sheriff's department to actually enforce and provide penalty to anybody that violates those regulations. Because we want people to take care of our parks, we want people to not trespass after hours, and that language just needs to be added there. So in the next couple months, we'll be working on that, and that'll be something that'll be coming before you in near future. Starting getting into the capital projects, active capital projects update. I know everybody's wondering when Allison Creek Park is going to open. All I can say is soon. We are in the final stages of construction now, trying to do final walkthroughs, punch list. And I just will say that it is going to be an amazing park, and we just want to make sure that everything's done. We've dotted our I's, crossed our T's, and it is a safe and quality park prior to us opening. So we will update you guys as well as the public as soon as we have that date. I've provided the rendering here just as a reference, as well as the amenities. I won't read all through those because I'm sure you are aware of what we're adding there. And here's just a few pictures, give you a little taste of what the restrooms kind of look like, our gatehouse and entrance, ranger station. And then one of the two picnic shelters, they're very large picnic shelters, and a great playground for the community to use. Next, first talk about an operational update with Ebenezer Park that I'm sure some of you may already be aware of, but we had a community meeting on June 22nd and engaged with the citizens in the area to talk about what the Phase 2 renovations were going to entail, the timing and things of that nature, just to best prepare them. We also learned there, as well as park staff did, the weekend prior, we had some major traffic issues and some capacity issues that really had the park unsafe. We had just outrageous numbers. And so from those meetings, we looked to make some operational changes to provide a quality park experience and a safe experience for our park users as well as our citizens that live in the nearby area, because the traffic was impeding on them getting to their neighborhoods and their houses and backing up to Mount Gallant and things of that nature. So the change that we've got in place right now is so that once our park reaches capacity, we're just not allowing any new guests to come in for the day. And that is allowing us to, again, control the capacity and us not be overcrowded. So we've received a lot of complaints, not just from the homeowners, but even the park visitors, our campers, they're just talking about how much more of an enjoyable park it is because it's not so overcrowded. So we'll continue with this new policy through the end of the summer, and then we will look to make any adjustments or tweaks that we need to when we go to reopen next summer after the renovations. I did include some numbers on here, which is crazy. I added April and May from our last update, as well as just June 1st to July 9th. You can see how many daily passes that we sold. On to the capital updates for Ebenezer Park. The construction bid is being advertised right now for those Phase 2 renovations. We had our pre-bid meeting last week, and so that closes. You'll probably see the award come across maybe at the August meeting, if not 1st of September, and the park is still slated to close mid-September to start those renovations. Again, here's a rendering and all of the Phase 2 elements. Next is Field Day Park. Thanks to you, Council, for approving the renovations, park improvements for Field Day Park. That RFQ is currently being advertised for qualified firms to provide a progressive design build service for these park improvements, which include adding 6 more pickleball courts, a maintenance building, safety netting along soccer field, shade structure over the existing playground. That bid closes in August, so we will be moving forward. That'll be another contract award that will be coming before you in the next month or so. Catawba Bend Preserve, capital updates for this project. The Loop Road design is still underway. We're reviewing those 50% plans, and construction is slated to begin early 2024. So again, be looking out for that bid to come out for construction. It'll probably be able to be in an update that I'll provide you later in the fall. Gatehouse and Trailhead restroom design. I believe that award recommendation is on your agenda tonight. The construction would approximately start in spring of 2024. So this is the design of the gatehouse, the restroom that'll be at the trailhead, as well as the design of the gate entry into the park and the trailhead parking design. RFQ for the dam repairs, that award and design fee will also be coming to you, if not tonight, at the August meeting. That project is expected to be complete fall of 2024, and that is repairing the dams on the 3 lower ponds that you see on the master plan map. RFQ design build for Greenway Trail, that is, we're gonna be moving towards designing the 1 mile of the Greenway Trail. That is the 5-mile Greenway Trail that is along the riverfront on the master plan. And so that is currently being advertised right now. And then 4 miles of the Loblolly Trail, construction is complete there, and we're just waiting on the trail maps to be delivered and for us to get those installed. So that's a lot, and I was trying to be as quick as I could, so I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Catherine. And I understand that the purpose of the update to the council was to inform us of active construction projects. I do want, since we have a good crowd here, it's always important to say we do have master plans underway, and some have been approved, Worth Mountain and Nanny's Mountain, as well as the Bethel Lake Wiley Preservation Parks. Those are 10 parks that the county currently has under its arm. And I know that one of our council members, Mr. Roddy, and I think Mr. Huckabee, I know that there's been some questions from District 3 as well about the status of the master planning in their districts, but making sure that our county, now that we have a parks director and a park system, making sure that we are providing the services, which the niche of the county seems to be passive recreation. How do we provide the passive recreation as a complement to the municipalities that do the organized sports, but having something in the way of a county-wide plan to make sure that there's no gap in that. And so I think that that's something that council ought to consider if that's not being considered by you all now. But I think to address those concerns, we would need to take a look at it countywide and make sure there's not a gap in being able to provide a service. Does council have any questions for Ms. Jones?
Just a compliment, first of all. I mean, the quality of what we're offering to the public to get out to these parks, it's pretty astounding. It really is amazing. It's exciting. When you look at Catawba Bend, though, it's also raising opportunity for events, driven opportunity. 5K races, for example, out in Catawba Bend. So I'm just, letting everybody know that if you have fundraisers or opportunities, you're looking to have a 5K race, Catawba Bend's a great destination for it. So I want to share that.
Absolutely.
Great job. Nice work.
Any other questions from council? Thank you, Catherine.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Well, that was very thoughtful of you all to clap and congratulate her. And that the reason why I'm saying that is because now I get to be the mean person. We move now to the public forum session. And this is what I love about our county and what I love about our country is that we give opportunities. This is the best place to live. We give opportunities for everybody to come and speak. It's the American way. You come up here and we provide this opportunity. Our council has built into our agenda the opportunity for the citizens to address us before we even get to county business. And I'm gonna let y'all know we got a big, long line of county business that we need to get done today. But what we do at the outset is we provide an opportunity for 15 members of our community to sign up and to speak. And typically those don't get, we rarely have but a couple, if that. We have a full slate in front of us tonight, so we are gonna hear from 15 individuals who signed up, the first ones who signed up. What I would ask of you is this. It takes a lot of guts to get up here and to speak in front of your peers and to speak in front of your community and to speak in front of this council. What I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to refrain from the applause. This isn't a political rally. This isn't an opportunity for everybody to yaddy up their position. This is an opportunity for someone to speak. And when I'm trying to move through this, because we do have a big agenda, out of respect for the speaker and out of respect for our process, I'm going to ask that you all refrain from doing that. We'll move through the speakers and we'll certainly get a glimpse of what it is that you're here for. As I'm looking at the item for discussion, it looks as if it is a lot to do with the library board. I do want to reiterate that this council does not decide policy when it comes to that, and so I want to make that clear at the outset. But anyone who comes up and speaks, what I ask you to do is to give your name, provide your address, and then we're going to start the 2 minutes, and you'll see it on the clock up here on the screen. it will start ticking. And it will get to, at some point it gets to yellow, and then it'll get to red when you're out of time. If you could kindly cut off your comments so that I don't have to do that, that makes my job a whole lot better up here so that I don't have to cut people off. I would ask that we do have folks here, and I appreciate the Sheriff's Office being here tonight. If there's anybody that causes disturbance, we'll have to deal with that, but I don't think that's going to happen tonight. Tonight we're here to hear from folks and to hear their comments on these items. I just ask that you be respectful and understand that this is not a time where council engages. We're here to listen only, so refrain from personal attacks on individuals because they're not going to be able to respond back and talk to you. So as long as we've got those ground rules together, the only other piece I would add is that we do have several public items that are on our agenda tonight. If you are here on a public item matter, you are not restricted in your time. We will, when we get to that discussion point, we will open it up for public hearing and individuals can come and speak, and you're not restricted on that. We don't do that. This is simply the public forum option that restricts you to the 2 minutes. All right, having laid that out, I think I've covered, did I cover everything? Okay. First individual who signed up is Linda Fisher.
Good evening. My name is Linda Fisher. I live at 334 Foxlear Court in Rock Hill, South Carolina. At the last meeting of this council, I heard numerous references to leaving the running of the library to the experts. What exactly are the criteria for these supposed experts? Simply because they are on a library board, they are automatically having the right to reject the request of patrons to adequately identify materials that we hold to be objectionable to minors. Our culture has for generations protected minors by passing laws that control the sale of cigarettes, alcohol, and pornographic material at the retail level. Movies are rated so that parents can decide whether they are suitable for the ages of their children. Even TV shows come with a disclaimer, viewer discretion advised. But the tax-supported public library autocratically denies the request of parents to simply relocate materials that offend the ethics and morality that form the underpinning of this country by telling parents they are responsible for the oversight of the books their children check out of the library. My daughter works 2 jobs, 7 days a week. And she looks forward to a special half hour with her 8-year-old daughter at the public library, where she would be safe to wander and look at all the wonderful books the library provided. Now, she tells me, she can no longer feel safe doing that because she says, and as I quote, "The library has put a predator on their shelves that will steal my daughter's childhood and destroy her innocence." To anyone who asserts that the library board is made up of experts, here is an excellent literary response. The emperor is wearing no clothes because this particular board is not comprised of experts. This board is a group of people who have become so arrogant in the autonomy they enjoy of spending taxpayer dollars with no oversight and making decisions in the vacuum of their own proclivities.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm sorry?
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is up. Rosalind Hudson.
Rosalind Hudson. I live on Spratt Street in Fort Mill. I'm a mother, a grandmother, a library patron, and a voter. Representation matters. Bigotry cloaked in a flag and waving a Bible is still bigotry. They know children must be carefully taught to hate others and discriminate. If they want to carefully teach their children to hate and promote intolerance, that is their right. I, though, will teach love, tolerance, and acceptance. Trained, educated, professional librarians in our public libraries have looked at these books, and they're not pornography. The fact that gender is not binary is not pornography. No society that bans books, and this is about banning books, is on the right side of history. Reducing the board in a naked attempt to promote bigotry is wrong and anti-American. In 1940s Germany, tens of thousands of homosexual men were murdered. That didn't start in Auschwitz. It started in meetings like this, and it started with people like you accepting bigotry and hatred and intolerance as okay. I expect leaders of an elected secular board to represent all the people of York County, not just those who want to discriminate. Representation matters. As a parent and a grandparent and a voter, I demand the representation for all children have access to all books, no different than on race or religion. And I expect better of you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Elizabeth Simpson.
I'm Elizabeth Simpson, parent in Fort Mill. I am here again over this library board issue. I've been familiarizing myself with the situation over the past month or so. And first of all, personally, I'm here to remind everybody in the whole room that the United States of America is not a theocracy. I do not want people who cannot or will not follow science, logic, and reason, who are not experts and who refuse to listen to experts in charge of what information is available to us as a society. When it comes to my children's education and mental well-being and ability to thrive in their community, I want the advice of experts. I want guidance that is based in tangible, demonstrable, fact-based reality. The Bible is irrelevant to the law, as all religious texts should be, because America is not a theocracy. Americans' freedom from religion is enshrined in the Constitution. Americans' right to receive information and ideas is enshrined in the Constitution, and none of this is negotiable. We are all watching as religious extremists are coming out of the woodwork lately, doing this exact same thing everywhere in America for months and months now, and someone needs to call it what it is. It is fascism. And I'm here to remind everyone that Americans give fascists no quarter.
Thank you, ma'am. Andrea Heigl. I may have pronounced that wrong. Looks like HGL. Andrea. Okay.
I'm Andrea Hale. I live in Fort Mill on Yorktown Street. I've been a teacher for 10 years and live with my family there. I'm here in support of our professional librarians and their expertise in making decisions for the selection and placement of books in our public libraries. It's become quite clear that certain council members have taken it upon themselves to overstep their roles by attempting to force their personal values upon our libraries. These council members claim to support families, but in fact, their actions and rhetoric as council members reveal quite the opposite. They are attempting to take choice away from families by restricting what the libraries offers on their shelves because certain books don't align with their personal beliefs. Everyone has a right to their own beliefs. What council members do not have the right to do is force their beliefs on their constituents. These actions are unconstitutional and have been reaffirmed as such in federal court in Texas just this year. Because these council members were unsuccessful in forcing the library board to restrict access to books, their next tactic is to reduce the number of board members to garner control. There has even been discussion of defunding the library completely. It's astonishing. These members have attempted to sway the council by falsely claiming the library board has ongoing quorum issues. There was just one meeting in which quorum was not met, according to board records. However, if seats are reduced, it could potentially cause the very problem our councilman falsely claimed currently exists. This is a gross overreach of the council. Library policy clearly states that it is up to the parents to monitor what their children take home from the library. If someone doesn't want their child to read a certain book, they don't have to check it out. The council does not have the right to make that decision for them. Inclusivity matters, and it's vital to all families are able to find books that represent them. The council needs to end this manufactured culture war on our libraries. Please vote no to this ordinance to remove the at-large members of the library board. Trust the librarians.
Thank you, ma'am. Elizabeth Tyler.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Tyler, and I live at 142 Webb's Mill Drive in Fort Mill. I am, to some of you, a transgender woman. To others, evidently, I'm an abomination. Regardless, I don't care what you think of me as. I do, however, care about the children and teenagers who are going to grow up in households who refuse to love them as they are. I do care about those who will go to their mothers, their fathers, their aunts, uncles, and grandparents seeking comfort, only to find that their family member hates them for who they are. I give not pretense to those who would deflect and say that they care simply for restricting sexually explicit material. These books teach about puberty. These books teach about loving yourself. And these books teach about the many wonderful ways one can live life as a human being. The current library board knows this, and that's why they won't restrict these valuable tools for both parents and kids alike. That is why it's so readily apparent that the reduction in board seats is a tantrum thrown by children who didn't get their way. I will not stand for tantrums thrown by elected officials. I will not stand for people shouting at me that my existence is a perversion. I will not stand for kids and teenagers being forced to use a separate but equal section away from other kids' books. I cannot end your tantrum for you, though. That's your job as adults. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Timothy Steele.
Hi, I'm Tim Steele. I reside at 2579 Catawba Church Road, and I am very glad to be here. I am a grandfather of 2 young children, a father of 4, and a concerned citizen of York County. The issue I am here about is the placement of sexually explicit materials in the children's section of the York County libraries and in the bookmobile. This violates 3 fundamental principles established by God. First, children are not meant to be sexualized, but to enjoy a childhood free of sexual messages, sexual grooming, and abuse by adults, and distorted sexual teaching. Children are meant to grow up being loved and not used. Secondly, parents are ordained by God to be the nurturers and protectors of their children. God has created the strong bond and desire to protect a child in the heart of a parent. Parents have the right and the responsibility to decide how to raise their children and to lovingly protect them from those who do not care about them and want to use and abuse them. Putting sexualized materials in the adult section of the library both protects children from grooming for abuse by predators and guarantees the rights of the parent to determine what their child is exposed to. It seems very clear that those who want to reach children with these messages are determined to do this without their parents' knowledge and consent. The recent movie, The Sound of Freedom, chronicles the sexual abuse and use of children across the world. Third, from the very beginning, God has held mankind accountable for the life and well-being of his neighbor, especially little children. As a community, we are accountable to God for the protection of the children of this county. We might not be able to change what is taking place across this nation. I really love the statement above you all.
I'm going to ask you to.
We trust.
Thank you, sir. Lydia Morales.
Hi, Lydia Morales. I live at 1267 Klingman Drive in Fort Mill, South Carolina. I support love, equality, and freedom. I support kindness and open-mindedness. It was said previously that librarians are sex traffickers, but let me clarify that definition. Sex trafficking encompasses the range of activities involved when a trafficker uses force, fraud, or coercion to compel another person to cause a child to engage in a commercial sex act. How absolutely ludicrous that sounds. Not anywhere about librarians and books. Giving children access to constitutionally protected books of such, it doesn't even make sense. So shame on you for even trying to say that a librarian is a sex trafficker. But let's talk about books. I looked up the state's definition of obscene material, and it has 4 standards it has to meet in order to qualify as obscene. The material in question is not protected by the U.S. Constitution. Well, these books are protected. The First Amendment rights to freedom of expression encompasses intellectual freedom, which includes an individual's right to receive information on a wide variety of topics and from a wide variety of viewpoints. 2, the average person would find the material offensive. 3, the average person would find the material to involve sexual conduct. Well, let's just say the average person can be widely debated right now. And 4, the average person must view the material as lacking any sort of value, for example, educational, artistic, or otherwise. And these books do have value, whether you want them to or not. So these books do not qualify as obscene. Next up, pornography. Printed or visual material containing the explicit description or display of sexual organs or activity intended to stimulate erotic feelings rather than aesthetic or emotional feelings. These books are not intended to stimulate erotic feelings, and if you are stimulated by these books, that's a you problem. So these books do not qualify as pornographic. For those who want to use the Bible to pick and choose what they want to support in the Bible, let me tell you that 1 John
Thank
says,
you,
whoever
ma'am.
says he's in the light and
Thank
hates
you, ma'am.
brothers is still in darkness.
Penelope Burden.
Do I start? Hi, my name is Penelope Burden, and I'm starting 4th grade at River Trail in Fort Mill. My question for the council is, why are you trying to ban kids' futures? It is not okay to ban books. These books help kids learn what their ancestors did so that they won't make the same mistakes. It's okay for you to feel ashamed, but it's not okay to take it out on other people. Me and my mom love to go to the library and look through books about the past, and I like to ask questions about it so I don't make the same mistake. If you're against it, it's okay. It's your opinion, but it's not okay to take it away take away from parents that want their kids to learn this stuff. So instead, just tell your kid to not read that stuff. Don't take it away from other people. Some people want to learn about their history, like mixed people. They want to know both sides of their family, like me. It's also not fair to say this girl is a boy and this boy is a girl because of their haircut, like me. I don't feel comfortable that the council is banning books that show different is okay. I think the books would help people understand that girls can have short hair, but if they're banned, then people will keep calling, like me, boys. So now I feel like I need to grow my hair back out. The council should not ban books about pride and transgender because you are trying to make them feel guilty. Right now, your focus is on books about pride, but I worry about the next books you want to ban. When does it end?
Thank you, Penelope. Aaron Johnson.
Hi, my name is Erin Johnson. I live at 1812 Lake Edward Road in Rock Hill. I'm a preschool teacher. I'm a toddler mom. I work at the Mercantile in Rock Hill, and I'm a preschool teacher and a children's book author and illustrator as well. When I relocated with my family from Spain, where my husband is from, I was super nervous. I never lived in the South before, and I had heard so much about all the book bans and everything going on across the states in the southern United States. So usually when I want to acclimate myself in a new place, I go to the public library to get the pulse of the city. The first day I ran into an unhoused teenager in the bathroom. She had all her belongings with her and was able to get cleaned up with dignity. The library didn't try to hide her away or offer her certain hours when she could be there. Rather, they offered her what good libraries offer everyone: access. And it was up to us whether to engage with her and treat her like a human being or not. The library also offers access to diverse books that teach kids about their bodies, their identity, and their race, among others. They don't hide them away either or create a culture of shame around them. Rather, they allow these books to be what they often are for young kids: a lifeline. The library makes that possible because they embody the idea of loving your neighbor, not as an abstract platitude, but as a boots-on-the-ground, day-to-day commitment to community. My daughter is 3. I don't know who she'll become, but I'm relieved this library is part of her village. And of all the things that could harm our children, from cyberbullies to bullets, I will put books at the back of the list. Trust our board and librarians to keep creating this space and vote no on changing the board. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Camden Davis.
Greetings, County Council. I'm Camden 3495 Fallowbrook Forest in Clover. I'm here to urge you all today to vote to reorganize the Library Board. The Library Board is largely run by unaccountable experts and professionals with little recourse available to we the people. We are not a county run by elitist experts or professionals. That would be anti-democratic, is anti-democratic. These are public libraries, and our county council representatives should have a say in their context. Vote to reorganize the board.
Thank you, sir. David Ibragimov. I'm sorry, I tried.
Hello, council members. My name is David Ibragimov. I live in Spartanburg County, but I live on the Winthrop grounds during the school year. As I just said, I'm a student at Winthrop and the president of the Winthrop University College Republicans. I'm also the eldest of the 5 in our family of 7 people. Being the eldest brother has always been my role in the family to look after my siblings. Whether I see something dangerous, something that should not be done, it has always been my duty to protect them as the eldest. What I have noticed, I originally wanted to be very neutral on this subject, come in as just a person who just hears both sides of this issue. However, there was a few incidents that I saw on social media. The most prominent example was I saw during Pride Month an incident recorded in New York where gay pride marchers had a slogan they were chanting, which was very interesting to me. We're here, we're queer, and we're coming for your children. I had always believed that everyone has the right to their choice, whether I agree or disagree with them. But the reason we're here is much more bigger of an issue than just censorment of books or the petty politics of the so-called fascists. I believe that the efforts made here and through the progress continued by the York County councilmen are good and will serve this county well. I urge you to vote to reorganize the library board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Zori Moore.
Hello, I'm Lori Moore, Broadcloth Street, Fort Mill. I am not here to personally accuse or attack the opposition here, but I am here to shed light on the word inclusion that is used by the opposition. The ALA is the oldest and largest library association since 1876. Unfortunately, has gone from an association to assassination of children's innocence through the agenda being pushed by their self-proclaimed Marxist president, who is so offensive that the State Library Board of Montana has cut all ties with the ALA. Part of the ALA agenda is to ban Christian books and Christian story hours in all public libraries. Where is the inclusion they scream about? Because of this agenda, there has been a call for an investigation to determine whether the ALA is complying with our nation's discrimination or non-discrimination laws in the use of federal grant dollars and respecting religious liberties of citizens. While claiming equality and diversity and inclusion, the ALA is conspiring to deny access to thousands based upon intolerance of their religious beliefs. Such acts are unconstitutional. Federal taxpayers should not have to fund this intolerant so-called inclusion. This opposition uses the same inclusion to justify these sexual obscene books to be left in children's section of the library. There's no justification for acts against the innocence of our children. The hard truth is this kind of inclusion brings confusion and puts children at risk for grooming. Ironically, the ALA is doing what the opposition has accused us of doing with the request of moving the books, violating the First Amendment. The problem with this accusation is we are not targeting LGBTQ books or even banning them, just simply asking for these books to be moved out of the reach of innocent children. In no way does this request violate anything but the ALA agenda. But by leaving them in the hands of children does violate the protection of their innocence. So the truth is, inclusion does not equal protection.
Denise Bach.
Denise Bach, Hammond Road, Fort Mill. Hi, Council.
I want to talk to you about accountability and inclusion as it relates to the library. I keep hearing that opinions like mine are just part of a loud minority as it relates to the library board. Well, let's look at that. Each one of you was elected by the people in your district, so the votes you cast here should be a reflection of the community you represent. My council person was voted in with a large majority in a conservative district. That tells you that conservatives are a very large majority in that district. Yet as I look at the library board, I don't see anyone on there that appears to represent any conservative values. How can that be, since I keep hearing about how we have to be inclusive? Why does being inclusive seem to always leave out any conservative opinions? I believe it's time for that to change. It's completely reasonable to reduce the size of the library board to 7 so each council member can finally select someone that represents the community and the district that elected them. It is time for accountability and fairness in selecting library board members so that conservative voices are not left out. Please reduce the size of the board so that it can finally reflect the communities that you all represent. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, ma'am. Diana Simone.
Diana Simone, 375 Starlight Drive, Fort Mill. I'm a former investigative journalist and now president of the Born to Fly Project to Stop Child Trafficking, which I founded 2 decades ago. We work in 65 countries, reaching kids before the traffickers do. I speak to you as someone who has fought child trafficking for 2 decades. One of the many seminars I've been to is about the connection between trafficking and porn. It opened with a neurologist talking about how addictive porn is, way above crack cocaine, and how the brain is actually pliable and changes according to what's put into it, neuroplasticity. Most people think trafficked children are abducted, but traffickers don't snatch kids or they'd run. They recruit them and groom them, so the kids are bonded to them and won't leave, the Stockholm Syndrome. One of the ways traffickers groom children is with pornography. They use it to desensitize and normalize behavior that any child instinctively knows is wrong. If I were to hold any of these books outside the library and show the children pages from them, books in the library, a picture of a nude man in a parade, a naked man and a woman side by side, a naked man and a minor, someone would call Sheriff Tolson and I would be arrested because it's against the law. In fact, York County's library's own computer policy quotes South Carolina laws against, quote, obscene material. If obscene material is against the law on the computers in the library, it's against the law on the shelves. The Supreme Court has consistently ruled the First Amendment does not apply if material is obscene. And according to the very laws that the library quotes on its website, this is obscene material. I leave you with a question. How long will you allow our children to be the currency of darkness?
Danielle Graham. I believe the handwriting is a little.
Danielle Graham, 5005 Downman Court. Good afternoon, council members. I've come here today to discuss the 3 at-large seats on the library board. I have brought with me a map of the 7 districts here in York County. Each of these districts are color-coded. I've also marked each district with the council member's name that represents that district. As you can see by my map, each district has a different land size and shape. The one thing they have in common is that each district was cut to include the same amount of people. Our 7 districts, not 10, are each 42,000 people. Again, our 7 districts, not 10, are each 42,000 people. Every single one of those people deserve fair and balanced representation on the library board. Each council member is allowed to appoint 1 person to the library board from their district, but there are also 3 additional at-large seats. That brings us to 10 people on the library board, not 7 to match the number of districts. Council members, that is not fair and balanced representation of each district. An unequal number of votes gets watered down as a result. If we were playing 5-card draw and I pulled 3 aces from my pocket, I would clearly be playing with an unfair advantage. I respectfully request that my county council remove the unfair advantage. Please eliminate the 3 at-large seats today. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, that concludes our public forum session. That's 15 individuals that have signed up. There actually were a lot of other folks who signed the form, but we only do 15 so as to allow our council to move forward with county business. I do want to say thank you to the folks who have talked tonight. Thank you for your respectfulness. I ask that you continue that and the rules that we laid out as we get to the item that when we start debating or having discussion on that. Just so you're aware, we do have other items that we have to address before we get to that item on the agenda. This one is item number 2 in old business, so we have some other business to conduct before we get there. Do we have a motion on consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second to approve consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, consent agenda is approved. We move now to page 22 of the agenda, our first public hearing item. I'm gonna give just a minute to let folks who want to clear out, folks who want to come in. Just a minute. I don't know him. I don't know them. All right, rezoning action number 1, hold a public hearing and consider first reading case number 23-21, tax map number 15600000012 through 041, zoning request to rezone from NC to RC, 1.78 acres in District 3. Do we have a report, Mr. Bono?
Yes. So the request is over 2 parcels. Those are pictured here. There's an existing gas station on the smaller southern parcel. The property owner owns the parcel to the north as well. There's currently nothing there except for a septic field for that existing gas station. So the request is to go from neighborhood commercial to rural commercial, which is a new district as of the adoption of RECODE a year and change ago. So the existing gas station is in a legal non-conforming status, meaning that the use of a gas station is not allowed in the NC district, but the use predated that, so it can remain as long as it's not expanded in any way. The applicant proposes to replace the existing canopy that you see pictured here with a larger one, and this requires them to rezone to a district that does permit gas stations. So staff recommends approval of this request. It's mostly consistent with the comp plan and the future land use map. So there's no rural center node here on the future land use map on the right. The subject property is at the intersection of 2 major roads, however, which is one of the criteria that we look at for that rural commercial designation. I'll also add that the property is already in a commercial zone with the neighborhood commercial, and there is general commercial present across Highway 5. And by a vote of 8-0, the Planning Commission likewise recommends approval.
Thank you, Jonathan. Are there any questions for staff before we open up public hearing? I see no questions. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this rezoning? I'm going to give a minute since we have a significant overflow. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of this rezoning? We have a motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion on the motion to close public hearing? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Do we have a new motion on the rezoning?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Move now to item number 2, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading case number 23-24, tax map number 25900000043, to rezone from AGC to RUD, 1 acre portion in District 3. At this time, I am going to recuse myself from this vote. There's another attorney in my office that represents the applicant on an unrelated matter. But since I'm chair and as out of an abundance of caution, even though I think I can be fair, I'm going to recuse myself, and I'm going to turn this over to allow the public hearing and the vote to happen. I'm going to hand this to the clerk, and then if y'all make sure you come knock on the door and let me know to come back in. I'll know what you really think of me if you don't come let me back in.
I'm coming to get you.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Bono, do you have a report on this one for us, please?
I do. So the request is to rezone the parcel pictured here. It's just over 5 acres outlined in red. The request is to rezone from AGC to RUD for just that blue portion. It's approximately 1 acre, and it would contain the existing home that is on the parcel. So the ultimate intent is to rezone to then subdivide that existing home close to Bohela Road to its own parcel, and then have the remainder of that 5.12 acres, so a little bit over 4 acres, would be recombined with the adjacent parcel. So the issue with the request from a staff analysis perspective is with the 2 maps that are on the right there. The top one being the zoning district. You can see the subject property and everything around it is in the agricultural conservation district. And for the future land use map, the subject property and likewise the entire area is planned for agriculture as a future land use. And there are no other parcels that are of an approximate 1 acre size in the area. So for that reason, staff recommends denial. That lot size is inconsistent with the area, which is exclusively planned for agriculture, and it may be considered spot zoning, and it might also set precedent for new 1 acre lots in that immediate vicinity. Planning Commission recommended the other way by a vote of 7-1. They recommend approval with a condition. It's the standard condition that within 90 days a subdivision would be recorded that separates the 2 zoning districts.
Okay. Does council have any questions for our planning director?
You got my attention when you said spot zoning. Kind of explain, not to me, but people that's listening, if we go down the road and potentially spot zoning, what does that mean for the county as far as legal?
Yeah, so spot zoning is illegal in the state of South Carolina in most jurisdictions. It has to be determined by a court, and it first has to be challenged by someone that feels aggrieved by a zoning decision. So there's kind of a 3-pronged test when it comes to whether something is spot zoning or not. The first is the district, the proposed district, is it in isolation? And that would be the case here, where you would have a small RUD parcel completely enclosed by AGC zoning. The second criteria is it counter to your comprehensive plan? And clearly here, the comprehensive plan is looking for this to be agricultural area. And then the third prong is, does it benefit only the property owner? And that would be the case here as well.
So we have basically 3 factors that meet the spot zoning question. And if we rezone this 1 acre parcel, would that put us in a position where if the next applicant came up with 1 acre, say, hey, I want to break off 1 acre?
Yes, so you would have, if another rezoning came in, the spot zoning question wouldn't necessarily be there in an instance, because now you've got an RUD parcel. So now it's more justifiable to have the next parcel and the next parcel and the next parcel be rezoned to RUD.
So this could open the floodgates to this area going to 1 acre parcels if we start down this road today.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. Is there anyone here to speak against this rezoning? Again, please give us your name and address.
Good evening, County Council. My name is Hannah Hopper, and I live at 2318 Bohealer Road. My husband Kyle is 38 and has been a member of the Bethany community his entire life. While I have only lived in Bethany for about 10 years, I have always lived in Clover and loved this little but rapidly growing town. When we chose to buy the land from Ed and Dee Smart on Bohealer Road, we were mostly attracted to the clause in our contract stating each house had to sit on a minimum of 5 acres. We wanted to raise our son and future children in an area that would be a rural and safe and a place that reminded me of the town Clover was when I was a child. I'm here today to voice my concern with rezoning the property at 2354 Bohealer Road. While I'm extremely sympathetic to the Wright family and the pain their family has suffered at the hands of this corrupt contractor, which is leading us to the rezoning, I don't feel that rezoning is something that should fall on our shoulders as their neighbors. We are concerned with the precedent that this will set in our community, and I fear it will open Pandora's box to others wanting to divide up their property and build more houses, and Bethany will yet become another overly crowded corner of the county. I feel that the way the property lines were drawn was poor planning, and life is full of unforeseen circumstances, and something other than what has currently happened could have come up down the road. And what would they do if the family building were to have to move for other reasons in the future? If they would have explored all other options and initially abided by the 5-acre rule in our contracts, they could have drawn the property lines differently. I also understand there is a concern of having small children and losing the privacy that is so coveted in our area. We have a family building beside us, and in an effort to maintain our privacy, we have had to plant trees. This could be a possible option for them. I don't want to speak for everyone in our area, but I am concerned of this becoming overly populated. The Smarts, when we purchased the land from the Smarts, we all signed a contract that allotted 1 house per 5 acres, and we have all agreed to that covenant and believe it should be upheld. Again, I hate to see what this family is going through, but believe it could have been avoided had there been better planning when dividing the properties. I don't feel it is our responsibility to take it on as their neighbors. Thank you. Sorry, a little nervous.
Me too. Okay, is there anyone here to speak in favor of the rezoning?
Hi, Chris Wright. I'm the owner of the house that we're trying to recombine it back with. So ultimately, this is family land, and we bought the acreage out here. We're not trying to ultimately rezone. We were told that this is the way that we had to move forward with it. And again, like Hannah mentioned, it's due to this corrupt builder that my sister is not able to finish the house, and the prices have gone up, and the bank has stopped there. They will not extend their rate lock. So ultimately, the way that we drew the lines was to give them that side. We gave them the 5 acres split it off there for them to build. And unfortunately, due to this, that land's 30 feet from our pool. It splits. I don't know if you have an aerial view. If you could pull that one up, you can see where our house is, right in the middle of the plot there. And basically, this is just a request. We don't want to set a precedent. We have, the same concern. We came out here to build and to stay. Got 3 kids, they run around the property. But that's just why I want to say that, not trying to rezone to RUD, that's what we were told to do in order to get out from underneath what's happening. And when they sell, it's going to be going to, somewhere else. So we're just trying to bring it back into family property, and just, avoid losing, the backyard there and 30 foot from the pool. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Do I have a new motion?
Motion to deny.
Second.
Motion to deny, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, discussion. Yeah,
John,
Discussion.
can you put the map back up? My question is, are we rezoning, what's gonna happen to the house? Is the house gonna continue to get built? Or is this gonna be sold? You say the bank rescinded the rate lock, and what's going on with the whole building process?
So the bank has extended their rate lock, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 times. They've been trying to build the house for 2.5 years. And you guys, I mean, constructing up, you know, I'm gonna name the general contractor.
Let's not do that.
Okay,
I was
sorry.
just asking about that. So the remaining portion of this lot is gonna go to the lot next door, once this is rezoned?
Yeah, we're just trying to bring it back into all one property, and
Okay.
this is what we were told. And I mean, I've got other examples of less than 5 acres right around us that's agricultural. I don't know if there's another possibility to keep it agricultural.
So why are we rezoning it off of the current lot size now?
Yeah, that's,
Can we direct our questions to our planning director? I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate it.
yeah.
Okay.
I've heard a couple questions in there. Can I get one?
Go ahead.
So the remaining part of this parcel that we're breaking off is gonna go to the adjacent lot. And the reason why I asked, was this house going to continue to get built? Because it sounds like are we rezoning this so that the family doesn't lose the remaining part? Because it seems like this house is going nowhere.
They were,
Sir, I'm sorry.
oh, sorry.
You can have a seat. You can have a seat.
Yeah, the request for the rezoning is related to the subdivision. They're looking to have the home that is under construction to be finalized, hopefully for the family's sake, sometime soon. But they're looking to have that subdivided out to 1 acre, I assume for financing reasons with the bank, and to separate that out. There's nothing that requires this property from a zoning perspective to be rezoned in order to be completed.
So, sorry, Bump, are you done? Okay. So the question I have, so RUD, is both properties on both sides of this zone RUD?
Everything on the subject parcel, including the 1 acre portion and the adjacent property, are all zoned AGC, agricultural conservation.
Everything?
Yes, sir. You'll see that on the map, that dark green color, that's the zoning district in the area. It's all dark green.
Any more discussion? Okay. So the motion and second is to deny.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
So the vote would be all in favor of denying?
All in favor of denying? Aye.
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 But
Okay.
may I?
No, we're past discussion. Yeah. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. You let Christie know she'll come back. We're doing, yeah. Everybody's leaving?
Moving ahead. Third item, our third public hearing, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading, case number 23-25, tax map number 721-00000013, zoning request from UD to GC, 7.6 acres in District 7. Mr. Bueno?
Yes, this 7.6 acre parcel is on Highway 21. You'll see just to the west is the Ross Warehouse, just off of 21. So the applicant proposes to develop the northern portion of this site with a two-story indoor storage facility and also an accompanying enclosed RV storage. The remainder of the site you can see on the south here is reserved for future commercial development. So here's some context of what that proposed site plan, that concept site plan would look like in the area. You can see Ross to the west. There's another self-storage facility immediately adjacent to the north. So staff recommends approval of rezoning the property from UD to GC. The proposal is somewhat consistent with the comp plan and the future land use map. While general commercial does provide some level of employment, it's not the preferred district for I-77 corridor employment, and certainly self-storage and RV storage is not a target employer, and it has a relatively low number of jobs created. However, you'll see on the zoning map on the left there, the GC district in red is in the vicinity, and certainly from the previous side, you can see that the use is consistent with the surrounding area. And finally, this would eliminate yet another parcel from the legacy UD district. And likewise, by a 7-to-1 vote, Planning Commission recommends approval as well.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for staff?
Yes.
Cloninger.
Okay. Jonathan, was there, or is there going to be a TIA?
Yes, ma'am. So at the point in which they apply for a civil construction plan, that's when the TIA would be required, and that would be both when they come in to develop that northern portion of the site, and also whenever that future reservation commercial comes in for whatever they plan to do commercially there as well.
Okay, so you've got on the right-hand side where Lakes Boulevard comes out, where is their in and out going to be?
So they would have to, so you have their conceptual design here having that line up with lakes, but of course they would have to submit for official civil construction plans. This is just a concept plan for the purposes of rezoning to illustrate what their intent is for the property. My assumption is that that would line up with lakes.
Okay, and I'm assuming if there are any issues with the TIA, they have to
Correct.
take care
If
of
there
that.
are any issues that are generated by the traffic from the site, and I'll say that of all the uses you could have on a commercially zoned property, self-storage is one of the lowest trip generators. But if they do create issues with the level of trips that they would introduce to the system, they would either be required to mitigate so that they make the area no worse than it is with background growth conditions, or they would not be able to move forward with the project.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? All right, is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor?
Move to close.
We have somebody coming.
Oh, we do?
Mhm.
Hi, Jennifer Patterson. I actually live off of, not that road, but the road right on top of there. Traffic there is awful.
Can you
The
state
way
your
it
address for me?
Narrows down, Primrose Walk in Fort Mill.
Thank you, ma'am.
The way it narrows down from the 2 lanes to 3 lanes to, sorry, it's actually 4 lanes, narrows down. The traffic there is awful. And I don't really know how the rezoning would affect the roadway, but I feel like before more businesses need to be added there, that road really needs to be fixed. It goes from a 2-lane road to a 3-lane road to a 4-lane road, but coming south, traffic backs up 30 minutes to an hour, and it's just absolutely awful. So if you're gonna add more stuff there, the road should be fixed first before any kind of additional traffic flow is added.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this rezoning item? Okay, do we have a motion to close?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Do we have a new motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We move now to the first item of old business. Council to consider second reading of an ordinance to amend section 30.32 of York County Code of Ordinances, conduct of meetings in order to amend subsections D and F to clarify the process and procedure relative to all requests for appearances and citizen concerns before council, and use of the public forum petition of the agenda to specify the parameters and requirements incident to all requests, to clarify the limitations imposed upon appearances and provide an alternative section of the agenda to which to address council on subject when an appearance or citizen concern may not be available or appropriate, to authorize county management to provide and periodically update as necessary a policy distilling the requirements set out herein relative to all appearances, public forum, and citizen concerns before council, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, I think we get to the item that most folks came out to. I'll just reiterate the comments I said before. If we can just keep, refrain from applause as we discuss the matter. Council to consider third reading of an ordinance to amend section 91.05 of the York County Code of Ordinances, County Library Board created, composition, officers, meetings, in order to reduce the size of the County Library Board to 7 district-specific members appointed by County Council, to clarify conditions for membership to the board, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Roddy?
Well, I've always been one to always express the reason why or why not I'm supporting or not supporting an item. And I would hope my colleagues would do the same, because our citizens, our constituents should know where we stand on the issue, not just our vote on the issue. I think this is coming at the very absolute wrong time. It's coming on the heels of the controversy with moving the books, banning the books, censoring the books, whatever you want to call it. If this is the right thing to do right now, it'll be the right thing to do 6 months down the road. But I think with this is coming so close on the heels of the book controversy, it feels like we're targeting our library board. We have other boards and commissions that have more than 7 members. And if we're going to do this for the library board, we should also do it for any other board that we have that have at-large seats. So at this time, I would like to amend the motion that all county boards, excluding boards with that include special tax districts, go to 7-member boards.
I do not think that that's a proper motion. The only motion that's been advertised and the only motion that's before council is the issue related to the library board exclusively. That doesn't prevent us from discussing it later or from someone adding it in non-agenda comment, but I do not believe that that's an appropriate amendment to this particular motion.
Well, I'll finish with my debate, with my comments. You know, we say we represent all citizens, and I know in my heart this is about the book situation. If we didn't have the book question come up by Councilman Audette, we wouldn't be talking about reducing the board. There has not been any other issues. There haven't even been a legitimate issue given as to why we should reduce this board. Just because someone doesn't like a vote that the board has taken, now it goes over to, well, let's reduce the board. I was even asked the question, do we not even have any conservatives on the board? And I was like, what does that mean? Just because someone votes a certain way doesn't make them a liberal, doesn't make them a conservative, just by one vote. I think we were led down this road by some misinformation, because it was told to us that this needs to happen because the board can't make a quorum. They can't hold their meetings. Well, we found out that wasn't true. And so I say if it's the right thing to do now, it'll be the right thing to do in 6 months, because we got on this path. We were misled on this path. We should do the right thing, and this is not the time to exclude volunteerism, because these people that serve on the board volunteer their time. We just had someone get sworn in tonight. They don't get paid to do this. And in a time where we're growing to 280,000 people in this county, 42,000 members in each district, how can we say we don't want to hear from more people, to engage more people? We're actually reducing people from volunteer. We wouldn't dare sit here and reduce the number of volunteer firefighters we have. We wouldn't dare sit here and reduce the number of volunteers that go out and feed the homeless. We wouldn't dare be sitting here saying, let's reduce, let's reduce. And we can hide behind whether it's religion or whether it's my personal belief, but I made a note. Let's call it what it is. This is someone's agenda to remove books, to censor books, and it's going on not just in South Carolina. We heard it's going on all across the country. It's going on in our public schools. And like the fourth grader got up here and said, don't limit others from having access. Libraries provide access. There's a big sign out front that says safe place. It should be a safe place for everybody to go, and not just for a select few people who feel comfortable. And we shouldn't send kids over to another section to read books that they can identify with. Why they can't read beside everybody else's kids? We're alienating our kids. We heard people talk about love, tolerance, and acceptance. Well, by this, we're going down that road. Eventually, these books are going to get moved. Eventually, these books are going to get taken out. So I just see this as a slippery slope that we're going down. And I wish my colleagues would express right now why they're voting yes, why they're voting no, so that you know how they stand, because you elected them. You should want to know not just their vote, but their views and why they're voting on something. So if someone votes yes or no and don't give you a reason why, that should be a red flag, because I just told you why I'm voting no for it.
Any other discussion?
Yeah,
Mr.
absolutely.
Audette?
Yeah. So let me tell you why I'm voting the way I am. And first of all, Councilman, you mentioned safe zone. So I've got parents that are concerned that their kids are coming into an area that's not safe for them. Okay, that is the way they feel. Okay, we need to stand by those parents, and we need to stand by parents' rights. Okay, the ability to move books is not moving books out of the library. The ability to move books is put it in the parents section and allow the parents to decide if they choose to read this to their kids or not. Very straightforward. The reason why I'm supporting this tonight is it was spoken well tonight. We go through a process of redistricting. Okay, we go through the process of identifying, we got 42,000 people per district, 42,000, okay? It is critical that we have a fair and balanced view when it comes to a vote. When you have one vote per district, you get 1/7 of the decision. Everybody is balanced across the board, and that is the reason why I'm supporting bringing this down to 7, to make it fair and balanced across the board. Okay, your comment in regards to other at-large boards, I would be definitely willing to have that discussion, and I agree with you. I think we need to look at other boards, and I think we need to look at other boards that have at-large seats, and we can bring it down to 7 for those other boards. 100% agree on that. But that is the reason why I'm supporting this, to bring it to 7 tonight.
Any other discussion?
I'll say, okay. It's frustrating to me to hear the rhetoric about banning the books and having the books removed, because that's what I am not for that. That is not what this is about. It is about redistricting, and that I was elected, and I will listen to the majority of my constituents. That's what I was asked to do. I have received a significant amount of input from both sides in my district. But I will always keep an open mind and listen to what the majority of my constituents want in District 7.
Anyone else? Mr. Atkins? I can't tell who wants
Well,
to go. Everybody's waiting to go to the last.
Well, I affirm what both of them said, because I vote the majority in my district, and that's the way the people in District 3 feel. So, and I also will say that I would like to see representation of one vote, one council, each member. Because at-large seats, in my view, and me and Mr. Huckabee have talked about it on several occasions, and I told him how I felt, is if you have representation by each one of us for each district, then we take the majority of what our district wants, and that's our vote.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I've struggled with this as well, and I'll do what Bump asked us to do, or Councilman Roddy asked us to do, and that is to explain our position. So there are 10 members on this particular board, and it's been mentioned that we're also responsible for appointing members to other boards as well. But there are 10 members on this board. 7 of those members are elected or appointed by each council member. So I elect mine, and the 6 others elect theirs, right? They appoint theirs. So then, of the 3 at large, those are also appointed by council. So as it's been mentioned earlier, that's 1/7 of a vote for those 3 at large as well. So I'm struggling to understand, why does it make sense to reduce a board from 10 to 7 if you're still appointing the members to the board? We're still appointing our representative to the board, and we still have 1/7 of a vote for the 3 members that are at large. So I'm struggling with this. And I'll say, as I mentioned the last 2 times that I voted on this has nothing to do with the left-leaning, the right-leaning, nothing to do with that. It just doesn't make sense to me. And then the last thing I'm going to say is this. Our role is to appoint members to boards. And when you appoint members to boards, they're going to probably closely align with your view. So if you think about it, if you look at the library board, does it closely align with our view? Maybe, maybe not. There's one board member whose term expired in June, there's one that expired Sunday, and there's one that's getting ready to expire in September. So it's up to council members to own our responsibility to appoint people to the board that closely represent you, which is what I intend to do July of 2024. The last point I'll make is that it's not our role, it's not council's role to defund the libraries, to ban books. That's not our role. That's what the library board is supposed to do. If anything that I think's been missed in this conversation is I try to listen to other people that have an opinion on our library system, is what are our libraries doing to evolve and serve the needs of our people in York County as we exist today? And I think that's a greater conversation. I'm not talking about books. I'm talking about services offered to the people in the county that may not have the resources to do things independent of what the county could help them do for themselves. So that closes my comments, but I won't be supporting reducing the board from 10 to 7 because I still don't have a good reason why.
Well, the worst thing about this room tonight is that aisle right there, the separation between people. When this was first brought up by Councilman Audette, I did tell him I support him in his efforts. And the next thing I did was call Julie Ward at the library and ask if we could meet with her. Because I wanted to talk to her, and I wanted to get, she's new, and I wanted to talk to her, and I wanted to get her viewpoint. And she said, and I said, you know, I'm sure that our chair would come and probably one other council member, and she wanted to bring a couple of members of her board. I think that is where, from that point, is where I think we got off track. Because when you back somebody into a corner, people stay in those corners. And I think that had we maybe had that conversation together at that point, we could have said, you know, I consider my job a balancing act. And, you know, I've got to balance what, you know, the left side and the right side want. No pun intended tonight for the most part, right? I've got to balance that. So if I've got constituents who are upset over the books that are in the library, I'm going to listen to them. And when I've got constituents that feel like those books need to be there, I'm going to listen to them. But I believe we could have had a coming together, and we could have maybe agreed on something so that nobody had to give up everything. Everybody had to give up a little something. And, you know, when you tell us the age of your kids, and your kids are 3, 4, 5, I mean, they can't read, they're looking at pictures, and it's not about, I'm sorry, what is that? Okay, so it's not about, even tonight, when we walk out of here, it's not about a win or a lose. It should be about a draw. And so, in my opinion, I totally support reducing all of our boards to 7 members. When I appoint somebody to a board, and I do want to correct one thing, we do not appoint our board members. We make recommendations. I chair the Finance and Operations Committee. Anybody and everybody can apply. We look at those applications and we determine who we think is suited. And you know, those applications, they don't have a lot of information. So we're not picking and choosing people by their political views, their sexual orientation, what color that's not how we pick people. The most important thing on that application to me is why you want to serve. And if this is a lesson to anybody tonight, it's that go ahead and get involved now. Don't wait until there's an issue like this that becomes divisive in the end to get involved with York County. Find a spot for yourself and apply for something, and let this Finance and Operations Committee, sure, we hear from the council members, and ultimately it's council, it's 4 of us, a minimum of 4 of us, who appoint people to every board and commission. So I've sat here through multiple meetings, I've gotten messages, phone calls, text, all kinds of things. And I've listened to everybody. But my balancing act is that I feel like the current board was a solid no, and that's where the negotiations ended. So the day after Mr. Audette brought this up, I got an email from Ms. Ward saying that meeting was off the table. So I looked at that as now we've got major resistance to even working anything out. That's why I support reducing the board, specifically for the library, as you said, because of that. I think each person up here, and I would apply that across the board. I think every board should be selected. Each of us has a say in that board. We do our best as a whole to put the best people, the right people on those boards, and we have all failed at this, and it's disappointing to me that we are even still discussing it. It's disappointing, excuse me, that there was ever talk of defunding the library. The library is so important. When they come and they make a presentation to us, I'm always very surprised by how many people actually go to the library. I haven't been to the library in a very long time. And quite frankly, I'm not offended by any books. You know what? I don't have to pick up that book and look at it. I'm not even going to accidentally pick up a book and look at it. And I do feel like the books probably should have been raised a shelf out of reach of small children. And you can define what small is. The board, your board can define what small is, but I do feel like there should have been better negotiations, and we wouldn't all be sitting here tonight with signs and divided, for the most part, again, by this aisle. And I feel strongly about it. And again, I encourage you to apply if there's a board position coming up for any category. We've got a lot of boards and commissions. Get involved before it gets to this point.
I've been told there's a point of order.
Oh,
I would like an explanation as to why my amendment to the existing motion was out of order.
I think the amendment related
I
to,
want to get
from legal.
There are 2 reasons. One is by title only. Generally, that's just debating the concept of the title, not amending anything in the title. Moreover, it's limited to the library board makeup. Your amendment constitutes an across-the-board change in the dynamic and structure of all boards. So it's not appropriate for 2 reasons at least.
When you say title only?
Oh, I apologize. This is limited to the board makeup of the library. So it's 3rd reading of the composition of the board, limited to the library itself. I had another ordinance on my mind when you asked me that question. I apologize. So it's limited narrowly to the composition of the board. of the library. So that's not the debate. You're enlarging the scope by the proposed motion. You'd be enlarging the scope of the limited nature of this particular ordinance. So it would be more appropriate for a new round, a new ordinance in and of itself, separate and distinct from this one.
All
All
right,
right,
thank
so
you.
we've had,
That's fine, thank you.
okay.
I accept that.
I think we've had everybody speak so far. Most of the comments that have been made here tonight deal with policy that needs to be addressed at the library board meeting. I've said this many times, and I stand by it because I stand by that process. It concerns me that our council seems to have more public input than our library board has had, and there's a mechanism with the library board to have a policy committee take a look at these things to invite more public discussion, and I think that would have been important, and that would have been a good thing to do. But we don't control them, and our council is very limited in the role that we play. A couple of things that I do want to set the record straight on, because I get these calls from folks, and it's sad to me to hear when folks get misinformation, and that's a problem to me. And some of our council members have hit on that, but we've gotten calls accusing us of, why did you defund the library? That did not happen. In fact, the county library is something that the county has supported. They had an increase in the value of their mill, and they received all of the value of the mill. We understand the importance of the library. Council's been asked, and I know I've been asked and accused of banning books. We have not adopted a single policy that affects anything with the county library board. That is the library board's decision to do that. Now the council's being accused of, okay, you're changing the board composition because somehow you're trying to get a majority on that board to do what you want to do. Well, the net effect of all of these policy changes still keeps the library board majority 4-7 in the existing board. So that doesn't rise to the level of a concern. Why now? 3 members on this board, their terms have expired this year. In addition, 2 of the other members didn't even live in the district that they were appointed to serve. The library board is very different than the other boards, and I do want to make sure that I'm right on this before I say, Mr. Madden, isn't the library board one of only 2 council-appointed boards that has special millage attached to it? The only other one being the museum.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct, the library and the museum.
And on that board, they only have 7 voting members. They have ex officios who don't vote, but that's only 2. It doesn't create an issue with 10. The only issue before us tonight is how many members are going to serve on the board, 7 or 10. This seems like the best time to do it when you have a change in the board composition already by its nature. And I support 1 member serving each district, especially when you have a special tax millage assigned to this. The only way to have and to ensure that all taxpayers are represented equally and that they're held accountable equally is to put them in the position of each district gets a representative. I don't know how that is not fair, and I do support this amendment, but I do hope that in the future that there is more discussion at the library board level. I think that would be helpful to the community with healing and with discussion about how to address these items and to try and find compromise.
Madam Chair.
All those in favor of the motion?
Madam Chair, before we
Huckabee.
vote, there's actually more to the ordinance in the last sentence. So are we addressing anything else related to the ordinance? There's one part of it is reducing it from 10 to 7, but then also to clarify conditions for membership to the board and to provide the other matters related thereto.
I think the only net effect of this, Mr. Kendry, I think you'll have to comment on this just to make clear this is the composition of the board, the number of the board members.
It is the number of the board members, and it's the residency requirement component.
I think the residency was already
the other
handled
one.
prior to this. The only thing is the
I'll have
board.
to pull that up.
So let me
So-
ask 2 questions.
I think we've already debated the discussion, and I don't think you've raised anything that's new, so I'd like to,
Well, this
for us
says
to
to
move on the vote.
clarify conditions for membership to the board. So if we reduce from 10 to 7, I'd like to clarify with 2 questions, if that's okay.
I think the ordinance is written out such that the only change that has been made to the existing ordinance is to reduce it from 10 to 7 district member representatives.
Yeah, on the composition, that's right. That would be the
That's the only
composition
change.
component.
There
Yes,
is no
ma'am.
other change.
Okay.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-2. Council to consider, we move now to item number 3. If there are individuals, as you leave, if you, I guess I'll give an opportunity to let folks leave. I think Kendry spoke to that. Should we take a break? Let's move on. All right, we're going to go ahead and move ahead with the agenda. Item number 3, council to consider third reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 154 Land Development Code to clarify cluster subdivision design requirements, to clarify traffic signs installation responsibility, to modify tree conservation requirements and mitigation, to establish the York County Tree Fund, and to clarify the applicability of a traffic impact analysis. To amend Chapter 155 zoning code to revise the definition of large capacity event venue to allow event venues as a conditional use in AGC, AGC1, RUD, and RUD1. To amend the development standards for event venues to eliminate rural event venues as a temporary use. To modify the maximum duration of temporary special events uses, and to clarify non-conforming structures allowed in the riparian buffer. To provide for a public hearing and to provide for other matters relating thereto. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I do have a couple of slides from.
That's right. We should have started with that. I'm sorry. Thank you, Jonathan. At the last council meeting, we did have some questions that were raised by a majority of the council, or at least several members of the council, who requested some feedback in relation to some concerns that were raised by some of the folks. I don't know if you call them developers or developer minded, and they brought some questions, and some property owners who had asked some questions. Before you get started, Jonathan, I do want to clarify a couple of things. The ordinance revisions that we're considering here tonight, they apply only to developments, not to personal property owners. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we had, during the discussion and motion to approve second reading, a couple of requests from council members. Those are listed here. One was to address having grand tree removal certainty more upfront in the development process. The second being to address staff discretion in removal and mitigation approval. And the third, to consider additional credit for tree save areas that are provided in specific locations, such as in riparian areas. I'll address that third point first, and some of those provisions come from the City of Charlotte and their UDO, and there's some very complex math that goes with that. There are some multipliers and some spatial distancing and a large table that accompanies that. So due to that complexity, and here we are at third reading, staff recommends that that subject be referred to the Planning and Zoning Committee for further discussion. It was just too late in the process to add such an expansive change to the ordinance at this time. So addressing the other two, so staff, we drafted further amendments to 154-200, which is the protection of grand trees, and that's in Exhibit B in your packet. So Exhibit B would essentially eliminate staff and planning commission decision in order to remove a grand tree, and all tree removal permits would be granted as long as an applicant provided the required mitigation. So everything else, including the new mitigation options available to developers and the associated rates, remains the same in Exhibit A as they are in Exhibit B. So again, Exhibit B would just remove all staff approval and discretion. So here's the language at issue. So it's paragraph D, removal of grand trees. So you can see with all the redlining there that those in Exhibit B would all be removed. So those are administrative approval is currently, we have 5 objective criteria that staff needs to review in order to approve a grand tree to be removed. I will add that letter D there was added as of recode. The other 4 criteria predate recode. So D was added in to make it easier to approve removal of a grand tree. And it essentially allows staff to, whatever a developer might propose, we're not stopping the development from happening for the sake of a grand tree. But in instances where a building can be shifted back a few feet or reoriented or otherwise relocated, those are the trees that we would ask a developer to try to design around first. So there's also would eliminate the waiver process whereby applicants currently have the opportunity, if they don't get an approval from staff to remove a grand tree, they can seek additional relief from the Planning Commission, so this would remove that as well. So that brings everything to the front of the process. A developer would know that they are going to be able to remove their grand tree, they just need to provide mitigation. So staff does not recommend that council adopt the further amendments that are in Exhibit B, and there's a couple reasons for that. Staff provides a value add to the county during the site review process. So as I mentioned, we're not seeking to prevent a development from happening on any particular piece of property. We're looking to improve the design so the county maintains the benefit of having a grand tree on the property, and the developer gets to have the buildings and the uses that they're looking to have on the site. We're looking for that win-win. So since the adoption of Recode last March, staff has approved 90% of all grand trees that have been requested to be removed. So there are many grand trees on a site that a developer will say, well, it's here, I know it's here, and I'm going to leave it here. So this 90% is just the trees that they have requested to be removed. So most of those grand tree locations meet those 5 objective criteria. Any of the remaining ones, staff makes the determination that they can be protected and otherwise designed around. And again, the code currently allows for developers to seek additional relief from the Planning Commission if they disagree.
Thank you, Jonathan. So I guess the synthesis of this is that the proposal that's currently in existence, there are 5 criteria that that staff would use, and who would make that decision? Is that you?
So we have a landscape architect. He's also a licensed arborist. So he makes the recommendation and we talk about it together. Typically, if he's got a very low profile case, it's very cut and dry, easy to make the determination. He'll do that on his own. He's authorized to do that. If he's got a more complex issue that he's wanting some input from, he'll reach out to me directly and we come to a decision together.
So you make the decision, and then if the applicant doesn't like it, which the decision has to be in the form of an actual site plan. You don't give speculative opinions about things like for someone to determine, before they start developing a property.
Yes, that's right. So, if someone requests a meeting and says, hey, we're thinking about doing X, Y, Z, can we remove these grand trees? We're unable to give them an official answer at that time. It has to be in the form of an official site plan submittal.
As I understood the criticism that was before the council and the questions that were asked, one was, can there be more predictability at the outset instead of having to wait until you're all the way down, into the weeds of the project to learn that you've got this responsibility to save a ton of trees. The only alternative that you guys could propose is to eliminate the requirement altogether, the analysis altogether.
That's correct. Yeah, if you want upfront assurity that a grand tree is going to be removed, the only way to do that is to not have any staff discretion at all.
Quick,
Why couldn't we do that decision early on, like as a precursor? Why couldn't we change that? To give that, if the question is there a way to at least address that before folks have spent more time and effort to figure out if that's something they could do? Is there not some way to put that forward instead of just eliminating that criteria?
No, there's no way to do that for any type of requirement under the code. So the only way staff can review a proposal is if one is submitted. We can't speculate on an unsubmitted application if a developer is contemplating what they might be able to do on a site.
go ahead.
You want me to go ahead and finish my
Yeah,
question? So the two questions were, they wanted some predictability at the outset so that it could provide some help with that. To me, it seems like there ought to be some other way to have that conversation before that occurs. I think the second item was, can you refresh my memory? Because I'm struggling just to at least make sure I vet the issues that were presented to us.
Yes, ma'am. It's the upfront knowledge that they would be able to have a grand tree removed, and then also the staff discretion whether or not their mitigation is going to be approved.
Okay. Once you make a decision, which is further down in the process, then they have the opportunity to appeal it to the Planning Commission. Is that right?
Yes. So any decision can be appealed to the Planning Commission if for some reason the developer feels that the decision was incorrect or they were aggrieved by the decision. This is a distinctly different type of process where it's stipulated in the ordinance that it's a waiver. So they're not saying that staff is incorrect, they're just seeking additional relief.
Does anybody have any other questions about that part? I have some questions about the other portions in here, but I kind of want to stick to one topic at a time. Any other questions on that?
I've got a.
Go ahead, Tom.
Real quick. So just for my clarity, though, when somebody comes to you on this, if, say, half of their property is in unusable wetlands or whatever it may be, does that factor up against the total amount of tree savings that is needed? Because only part of the land is usable.
Yeah, and that goes back to this question number 3 here. For example, I believe in Charlotte, you have a multiplier. So if you have tree save area that is directly adjacent to a stream bank, then there's a multiplier of 1.25. So it gets very complicated very quickly. So that's why we recommend that item be referred, that topic be referred to the Planning and Zoning Committee for further discussion. We can always come back and add that as an additional credit if that's something that council would like to do, but it's a more substantive change than would be appropriate for a third reading.
Yeah, I mean, I think further discussion around there, because again, I think there's properties where developers have purchased it and the amount of unusable land, I think that there's a lot of value back to them with what we're requesting. I don't want to short the developers in the fact of, they've got plenty of trees that may offset what is required. Thank you.
My question's for King Root, which ain't nobody more for preserving and greenery than I am. But in any way, whether we save or don't save, and we tell people to save, whatever, does it affect the county as far as a liable if you have someone save a tree and something was to happen where the tree falls, limb falls out, if we telling them it's mandated they keep it? Especially on some of these big trees where they're very prone for limbs and be hollow in the middle and whatnot.
I think that would be a question for you guys over there.
There's a component about infirm trees that allow an exception to cut down so the known or visible potential liability can be removed. And these are going to be trees that are preserved, that are healthy, have the objective standards,
So we're
width,
gonna-
height.
You do have a trained arborist and everything too?
Yes, sir, there sure is.
But is that just under the A plan or is that under the B too?
So there's a nuance to the definition of grand tree. So a grand tree is only grand if it meets certain size criteria, but it also has to be a healthy tree. So if a applicant can demonstrate with their own arborist that it's unhealthy and our arborist agrees, then it no longer even qualifies as a grand tree, so it no longer needs to be protected.
Ms. Love?
Talking about here, in essence, is whether or not we're gonna save grand trees in York County. Because what the committee and the council has seen multiple times now, we've workshopped, we've had committees, this has been back and forth with council several times. And if we water this down, I guess the Appendix B is, you can cut down any tree, and there's really no negotiation at all. So there's some areas of York County that they've already taken out most of their grand trees. They don't have any left really to preserve at this point. And then there's areas where there's not a lot of development, and they haven't lost their trees yet. They haven't seen what it looks like to look up and see a developer clear cutting and taking trees. So I live in an area where we are right in the middle of all that. We're not Fort Mill yet, but we're a long way past some of the other districts in tree removal. I think it's very important, and I think we have to trust our planning director and our staff to try and negotiate. One of the things that we've often said is, let's let them use some common sense. I think the 5 parameters that they use, they're common sense things. And we're certainly not going to deny a development. I mean, we're business and we're development friendly for the most part. When something, one of the concerns was industrial. We're not going to turn down an industrial site that's wanting to come to this county over multiple grand trees, quite frankly. So I think that, we are having a conversation tonight, and on one side is the development community, and on the other side is the people, and I'm elected by the people. It's very important to me that we save trees. We have a development going on right now in Lake Wiley, and that developer was, he wasn't happy about going back and changing a plan. However, when he got to the Planning Commission and there were 179 emails saying, we want you to save the trees, he decided to go back and change his plan. What we're doing tonight could undo that. He's worked to change his plan, he saved the trees. By the way, one of those trees, it doesn't look that great. It looked a whole lot better when he started though. I call that principal tree. That tree's got a name. That tree is the principle that we need to be standing on in our grand stand tonight for our larger, more prominent trees throughout York County. And one of the things that I'll say is that if you could go back, some of the other districts, if Fort Mill could go back, they'd probably save some trees. I'm in a position right now where I need you to help me do what Fort Mill could have done 10 or 15 years ago. And for those of you who aren't seeing trees taken out yet or don't have trees to take out, you're mostly a municipality area, you don't have to worry about grand trees. Your municipality is going to take out those trees, and you really don't have to worry about them. But I think the rest of the county, and I would love for Lake Wiley and Clover to set the example for the rest of the county that these trees, they're very important to us. They buffer sound. I live in Lake Wiley, and I could never hear the traffic on 49. But now I hear every fire truck that goes by. I hear cars. I hear them drag racing on 49 most Friday nights. And the reason I hear that is because not only did development come in, the worst part about that development was they took away the tree buffer. There are no trees, and there were a lot of grand trees on that property. What if that neighborhood had to save 2 or 3? The only good thing that I hear that's different when the airplanes aren't canceling out are the church bells that ring up on Highway 49. And I'm a good ways from Highway 49. So I just think it's important, and I think we have to have the foresight as a council to, whether you've got grand trees and are feeling the pinch on these big trees, please respect the fact that those of us in the Clover and Lake Wiley area are definitely feeling the pinch. And I have to correct you, Jonathan. There's one little term I didn't like, and that was when you said cut and dried. Let's use some different terminology when we're talking about this ordinance, because that just sounds like we're getting ready to have a bonfire.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, also, now, when you talk about, now, this is strictly from my knowledge of being on the farm and all. When you save this tree, are you going to have a way to make a cluster? Because one of the worst things that you can do in a cow pasture, especially, and humans too, is leave one single standing tree, because it becomes a lightning rod. Been a many cows killed that way, people too. So, and this is only going to apply basically for commercial?
This only applies to commercial and industrial properties.
Right,
It also applies to new subdivisions.
new subdivision.
Any other discussion from others? So I do support, and I thank you, Jonathan, for coming up with some options and alternatives. I still have some concerns about, I'm 95% supportive of this. I think there's a lot of good things. I think there's a lot of hodgepodge in this, which I'm generally not in favor of, lumping in lots of different things into one ordinance, because I think each of them could be debated on their merits. But when it comes to this tree save, I 100% support that we preserve the grand trees, especially on private property. This doesn't, but this does not impact our private property owners or folks that own land that cut the trees. This is solely for industrial and commercial. And so I think when you have your industrial developers coming in and saying, hey, this parcel is industrial, I'd like to have the answer to this question earlier on in the process so that we can understand whether or not this particular project is feasible. I think that if we could give it a little bit something more than just all or nothing, then we might come up with a solution that appeases everyone, kind of like the similar discussion that we had before about what we're asking other boards to do. So I have a little bit of concern about that. I also think, and clearly from what I'm reading from this council's ready to move forward with this, but with the event center, it continues to be a problem for me personally, that the reason why we came up with the event venue issue was in order to add more ability. It was to let Windy Hill do what they've been doing for years and years and years, but we had somebody or a new director come in and tell us, no, you can't do that, and they were basically out of compliance, so we had to come up with an ordinance. And now we have an ordinance that I think excludes folks that have been doing this for years and years, and so for us to exclude it as a temporary use and for us to not consider, to go a little bit further with that and to allow folks that have been doing that on their personal residence, we let them use it for renting their home out, but we don't let them use it temporarily, even 10 times, to do some event venue. Those are the two reasons I can't support the ordinance, but I do think that 95% of it I like, and so I hate that I can't support it tonight. All those in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Motion carries.
I'm just gonna say one thing to make you feel better.
I don't think that's appropriate. Yeah, we move on.
We're still working on the venue issue.
All right, so we're moving now to new business. Rezoning action, consider first reading case number 23-29, tax map number 562-0101-014, to rezone from NC to GC, 2.1 acres in District 2.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Not unless y'all wanna know what it is.
Maybe we should, since it's kind of a little bit out of order, why don't we have somebody explain why we've got this on here? Mr. Bueno, we're going to put you on the spot.
Yes, so this is a property that it is currently neighborhood commercial. There's a tenant that has been trying to locate at this location for a while now. They requested a use determination because it was unclear what type of business that they were going to be. Staff made the determination based on the description of the use that it was a bar and therefore not allowed in the neighborhood commercial district. The applicant made some changes to their business model and their forecasted income. Some of their staffing decisions were modified, and they resubmitted for another use determination. And that determination came back that they were a restaurant, but based on the zoning code, a neighborhood restaurant is up to 2,000 square feet, and the space that they're seeking to move into is over that amount, so they would have to be categorized as a full restaurant. And so therefore, they needed to rezone the property, or the property owner did, to general commercial to allow that tenant to locate their proposed business there.
Any questions for staff? Comments? All right. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We move now to consider approving a resolution declaring August 17th, 2023 as the 25th anniversary of York County Forever Commission. And I've been informed that we do have some remarks that folks would like to make, and maybe a little presentation to give us some feedback.
We do. I'm Nicole Druckmiller, and we would like to present a video that the county has put together for York County Forever.
Okay.
Since 1998, York County has grown by 83%, from 157,000 people to nearly 300,000. Also in 98, York County Council launched an effort to save some land from development, preserve historical and cultural resources, and promote nature-based recreation and tourism. The York County Forever Commission was born. Through its work in partnership with the Nation Ford Land Trust, more than 11,000 acres have been protected forever. This summer, the commission celebrates its 25th birthday.
It could be 2 acres, it could be 200 acres, it could be 2,000 acres. And any size property, every square inch that we can have conserved in York County is going to make an impact.
You've heard of some of the big impact projects, Catawba Bend Preserve, Nanny's Mountain, but there are many more.
Magnificent big trees. I used to wonder what's out there. What's that ground all about?
Bob Stuck and his wife Deborah owned Flying King Ranch just outside York on Highway 321. It's quiet here, beautiful, and feels like someone turned back the clock.
Open spaces provide the opportunity for people to really understand creation and see the beauty of what God's created for us.
That's exactly why the couple first protected 276 acres in 2006, then added land piece by piece, eventually putting 3,000 acres in a conservation easement.
When you put a property into conservation easement, it is forever. It's in perpetuity.
York County Forever makes it easier by helping landowners with the cost of appraisals, surveys, and legal fees. Steve Hamilton is an ex officio commission member and executive director of the Nation Ford Land Trust.
People ask me, why do they do this? And my real quick answer is it's in their hearts. They want to protect the land, they love the land, they want to preserve it for posterity.
That's why David Anderson did it.
None of this would be happening if it wasn't for York County Forever.
In 2019, he put 340 acres south of Rock Hill in a conservation easement. Anderson calls it a family decision, and it was his future family he was thinking of.
100 years from now, I'm sure it's going to be built up all around here, and this is going to be our own little piece of heaven for my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I think there's more value in that than selling the property and having it developed.
In Hickory Grove, we found Kathy Bratton, who served on the commission in its early years. She's proud of what they did then and are still doing to preserve green space.
If we don't preserve it before it gets developed, then it's hard to go back and dig up all that concrete.
And there's a lot more concrete in York County now. But as the landscape has changed, the mission of York County Forever hasn't.
25 years is a great milestone as you look at it.
Current commission chairwoman Nicole Druckmiller met us at an historic treasure, a former cemetery for enslaved people, now forever protected.
This could have been a housing tract, and now it's not. Now it's a preserved area. So what else is out there that we can find?
You've seen just a few of the natural, cultural, and historic treasures protected over the last quarter century.
We're all working in it for the same common goal, to make York County a better place.
The land is being gobbled up as quickly as it can be. So when there's an opportunity to preserve large swaths of green areas, I think it behooves all of us to make that happen. And York County Forever definitely helps make that happen.
People of York County see the benefits of it because we have been around so long, and hopefully they will continue to see the benefits of it for decades to come as well.
Thank you for doing that video, and I think I recognize several of our York County Forever board members here. If you'll raise your hand just so that council can see you. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for what you do. We do need a motion to continue to have a conversation. Do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. I know that our council's very much appreciative of what York County Forever does, and we're pleased to sign this resolution. Do we want to get a picture on that? Y'all want to come up and let's get 25 years? That's a big deal. All right, let's do that.
Good job. Great job.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Great job,
Good to see
yeah.
y'all. How much more we got? We're almost there. Do we need to take a break? I will take a break if you need one. Okay. All right. We move now to number 3 in new business. Council to ratify an emergency procurement in the amount of $770,111.10 to Cleary Construction of Tompkinsville, Kentucky for Sugar Creek's slope stabilization associated with New Heritage Phase 2, project number 17260.
Motion approved.
Motion and a second. Can we have just some feedback from management about what that is?
Yeah, and if I could, I'd just like pass it over to Mike Moore. He's a lot more familiar with that issue.
Yes, this is for repair at the Sugar Creek Bank, following a repair, the New Heritage Phase 2 project that was completed last fall. Due to heavy rains and higher stream levels, there's been erosion on that bank that puts the manhole covers at risk. The sewer line itself is essentially at the creek level. But this will shore that up to prevent further damage to our county equipment and property.
Jumping ahead of me. All right, any other questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item number 4, council to consider first reading by title only of an ordinance to amend the Code of County of York, South Carolina, Chapter 30, Organization and Rules of County Council, and Chapter 56, Public Nuisances, Section 31.04 A, D, and C, and 56.116 A, 56.117, and 56.999 in order to appoint and commission litter control officers for the purpose of enforcing littering violations on public and private property within the unincorporated areas of the county, to authorize litter control officers to use ordinance summonses for the enforcement of the applicability of county ordinances in the unincorporated areas of the county, to authorize litter control officers to carry a firearm and make custodial arrests, to prohibit the transport of loose material by truck, trailer, or other motor vehicle within the unincorporated areas of the county unless such material is covered and secured in a manner to prevent littering, to provide a tiered fine schedule which increases in amount for each subsequent offense, to hold a public hearing, and to provide further matters relating thereto. Do we have a motion?
We'd like to defer and refer this back to Public Works Committee.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just curious in the reasoning.
Okay, so the reason we need to send this back to committee because we were looking to get this ordinance prior to just coming to first reading. Several of us are not sold on the fact that this new position, which hadn't been approved in the budget, the new person will be able to carry a firearm and to make arrests or citations on private property. So we just gotta hammer some things out before moving forward with this.
Thank you for explaining.
Thank you for that motion. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, this is a big step. You know, we just don't want to jump right into slamming staff with a new position. Also, we need to vet this thing about, you know, a little control guy carrying a firearm. That's a big concern of mine.
And where the money's coming from and how you're going to police this and that sort of thing. All right, so all those in favor of deferral and for referring this to committee, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item number 5, council to approve the renewal of professional services with Bolton and Mink, Inc. of Charlotte, NC, regarding RFP number 2810 for grant writing and administration services contingent upon the county attorney's approval.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Council to reconsider its June 2023 vote on Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee's recommendation for fiscal year 2024 funding in the total amount of $123,750.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve, and this is, just for clarification, we had a workshop where we discussed this and the reallocation that's presented. So the motion itself is to approve the chart.
No, it's not. It's
No.
to not approve the chart. It's to take back what we.
What is our, did we not put the allocations in here?
Yes, in the next one.
Is it not?
So this is, Mr. Kendry, what is the purpose of this part of the motion? We had to divide it up in order, do we do the allocations in the second part? This is just to reconsider the vote? Yes. All right, so we're going to reconsider the vote and we'll discuss the details in the next one. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item number 7, council to consider the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee's recommendation for fiscal year 2024 funding in the total amount of $123,750.
I'll make a motion to make a change, a slight change, because I think most of what we did was good. We just didn't have applications in from the county, for the county to be able to be the recipient of some of this money, and hopefully that will change next year. So what I would like to propose is that we take the $65,000 that we're going to go to the county parks and give that to the CVB, the Rock Hill York County CVB.
So the motion is to approve the allocation with the changes noted. All right, any other discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Huckabee.
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Brogdon, can you pull up a slide for me, please? So I'd like everybody to take 1 minute, and if you don't mind, just read over this for a second, and then I'll explain my request, which is not necessarily counter to the motion on the table. Okay, if everybody's had a chance to read over this. So what I'd like to ask is that the City of Rock Hill, the Parks Division made a request, and when we originally got our material before our last meeting, it had allocation requests in there, and I'd have to pull that back up, but I think it was $50,750. And when you look at these numbers, you look at the far right side of this, the 2024 UCI BMX World Championships that will take place in Rock Hill. And listen, I'm not advocating necessarily for Rock Hill just because I live there. It's not why I'm saying what I'm saying. But when you look at the accommodations tax, one of the purposes of the accommodations tax is to put heads in beds and have an economic impact. This event that's going to come to York County, and when I say York County, it's not just coming to Rock Hill. I think there are 15 in the unincorporated areas of York County, there are 15 hotels and motels. All 15 of those hotels and motels are going to be full for 7 days. And this does not even take into consideration the over 4,000 riders that come into the area, sometimes a week early, to prepare for this event. So what I'd like to request, in addition to the motion that's been made, would be to allocate $50,000 to the CVB to provide marketing support to the City of Rock Hill Parks, Recreation, and Tourism for this event that is the most significant event that's going to take place in York County in 2024 as it was in 23 and 2017 if you look at those numbers. No other event took place in York County that had this type of economic impact or heads and beds.
So, just so I'm clear, I think the motion currently on the table is to refer the full $65,000 that we have to reallocate to the CVB for purposes of doing the work that the CVB needs to do. Are you making an amendment to that? Are we comfortable that the CVB knows how to address the funding requirements and requests that they've gotten? I mean, no doubt the BMX has a powerful impact on the community. I'm just wondering,
Thank you for
isn't the
request for
CVB the
clarification,
best?
Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm requesting that the 65,000 that's been suggested to go to CVB, that 50,000 is specifically earmarked for them to market for this particular event, and then 15,000 is left at their discretion.
We have an amendment to the motion. Is there a second? The amendment,
So-
is there a
so-
second to the amendment? I need to do that before we move on. I need to understand.
So, just so I'm understanding this, though, CVB would take 50,000 and utilize that directly for this event.
Yes, it's the same thing they're doing for other events. We referred to them that they're going to market for those events. We didn't give them money directly in our last meeting, specifically to the Arts Council, to the Rock Hill Bike Club. We gave it to the CVB to market for those two entities for the amount of money they requested. So I'm suggesting the same thing for Parks, Recreation, Tourism for the City of Rock Hill.
I think if we were gonna earmark something, we would earmark something for them to promote one of the county parks that we're having to take this money back from, like maybe even Catawba Bend, or, because we're pulling from, this is, after the accommodations committee made the recommendation, they received $500,000 for BMX from the state. So that's a lot, and I know it's a really big deal. I've been to it, it's a big deal. But I'm not comfortable earmarking money and telling the CVB how to use that money. I think they know how big this event is, and if they choose to market it, I think they need to be the ones to determine where they spend the funding that we give them. It's just my.
Mr. Roddy.
I was,
We can still debate the main motion, which is where I think we are with
That's
this,
where
that
we
the
are.
amendment fails for lack of a second.
Right.
But we're continuing to discuss, which is, we're at the main motion again.
I supported the idea of giving the funds to the CVB to allow those other events, including the BMX, including Strawberry Festival, who didn't get funds, any of these other events who feel the need to utilize our marketing department. Not to send money over to say, hey, do this with it, because if we're gonna point and say, do this with it, we can just give it directly to the entity. I think this BMX event is gonna be hugely successful, whether we give to it or not. But I think some of our other events could utilize the expertise of the CVB to help grow those events. And I hate to shine the light on the Strawberry Festival, but Strawberry Festival started up since I've been on council. It has grown to the point that it is now on its own, flying like the eagle that it's supposed to be. Don't need our funding, not getting in any of our funding, and it's still successful. I think we owe it to ourselves in this community to help grow other events so that it's gonna be successful like the BMX, regardless of with or without our help. And knowing that the city of Rock Hill got $500,000 after this was applied for, You know, our money is just a drop in the bucket at that point in this budget. Now, could they still apply and work with the CVB to do some marketing? Absolutely. But I would much rather see some of our other smaller growing events lean on the CVB for its help to help grow those events. Because I would love to see a whole new slate of events and marketing opportunities come through that we don't even see on here. Because once an event gets to a certain level and it can sustain its own from advertising, financing, and growing, then we need to move and help another organization, help another group to grow those events. Because if we don't give one dime to the City of Rock Hill for the BMX, it's gonna sell out every hotel. We got people coming from 50 different countries regardless. So at that point, we're just throwing money over there just to say we gave $50,000. I would much rather break that down and open it up for other organizations who really need that extra push to grow those events. And maybe one day, those events won't even need that funding. They're growing and flying on their own. That's how I see best using the funds. We can give $50,000 to Rock Hill, but at this point, I don't think they need our funding to be successful.
Do we have any other discussion on the main motion?
No. I mean, I think I think CBV, again, they will just, I think to us, we're putting our trust in the fact they'll make a decision on how best to serve that event. So to associate an exact dollar value, I don't think it's needed in this case. I think that we've entrusted them to really market it in the best manner. So I think that's, to me, the best approach.
So in a point of clarification, at our last meeting, I'm pretty sure, and I'd like to go back and read the minutes, and I guess I'll do that after this meeting, but specific entities were mentioned that we would not be funding them directly. We would indirectly fund the marketing for them through the CVB. So if that's the case, then why are we not considering $50,000 or specific allocations for marketing to the CVB? Because they can't give the money directly to the entities, they can only do marketing for them. So we did mention entities in our meeting.
For them to
We-
apply.
we
Two
weren't-
in particular.
We didn't earmark where they were gonna spend the money. We mentioned that what I mentioned in that meeting was that I had already heard from someone on the CVB, and that they had met with the people who were recommended by the Accommodations Tax Committee, and that they were going to see that those entities were taken care of. They were looking at those, they had already met and were looking to consider all of those entities that were originally in that accommodations tax recommendation.
All due respect, I think this is another gray item that I don't think needs to be gray. If anybody on this council thinks that there is going to be marketing for a specific entity that requested money here through the CVB, then what I'm saying needs to hold up. We need to be consistent.
I think, is there any other discussion from council on this? I think what I'm hearing the majority of council say is that, and I see Andy here tonight with the CVB, what I'm excited to hear is that this council's supporting giving extra money to the CVB, which has not happened in the past. So I'm excited about that. I do not think that it doesn't seem like they're supporting council to earmark and tell them what to do with their job, but I think they've heard you, and I think my personal belief is that they will use those funds to maximize, especially the unincorporated, which is where this funding comes from. How do you maximize the heads and beds for the unincorporated area? And certainly that is going to be an event that I think they're going to be spending a significant amount on. It's just we're not going to tell them what to do. But I mean, conceivably, the full $65,000 could go to the BMX if they determine that it needs to go there. I just don't know that it's council's place to earmark it directly for them, since we don't know all of the.
As a rebuttal, since you're responding to what I had mentioned, there were a list of requests specifically with applications submitted by May 25th with an application
Understood.
to request monies. Now, I'm not opposed to the CVB. I support the CVB. What I'm saying is that there were specific requests that totaled $123,000 and some odd dollars. And now it's turned into more of a hypothetical on us allocating the money to CVB with not really being specific with who they're going to support that's provided an application.
Well, I made a motion on that original recommendation, and it passed. And what we're doing tonight is we're just going back and correcting the ones that didn't have an application, the county parks that didn't have an application. So that, at that last meeting, we were confident in giving the CVB funding and allowing them to determine where that needs to be spent. There's a lot of things on this list, and there are a lot of things that are not on this list that they may choose to spend their money on. And I think we just have to trust them to choose what's the best thing for them to promote. That's their business. So, and I think, you know, and this is what I said in our workshop, and that is, we make a smaller difference. We make a bigger difference with a smaller event or venue than we can ever with something as large as the BMX, just as an example.
I think those words, I'm glad they're being spoken, and so they are. I think the CVB is that's the motion that's on the table. I respect the comments that you made, Councilman Huckabee. I did not hear a second for purposes of earmarking that, so we do need to move forward with the main motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We move now to item number 8, council to consider recreation tax allocations for fiscal year '24.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can we?
Wait, what do we approve? What is that?
We are approving the recommendation that was, what was discussed at our workshop was to put on the agenda the recommended allocation that was discussed at the council meeting. That's where we're starting from. So the motion has been made, and there is a second to that motion.
I'll start out by saying, I don't think we're justifiable in taking 50,000 from Clover to give, I think it was 15 to, I think you have the back of my sheet.
10 to Rock Hill.
I think it was
10 to
10,
Fort Mill
15,
and
15, and
30,
10.
30 to, yeah.
So if my memory serves me correctly, okay, here we are. So taking $50,000 from Clover and giving an additional 10,000 to York, an additional 10,000 to Rock Hill, 15 to Fort Mill, 15 to TKK. You know, I don't see the justification. I mean, basically, I supported management's recommendation in the beginning, and that's still where I'm at. These numbers deviate from that. I can't justify moving these funds around at this juncture. So I don't know if I'll be out of line by wanting to go back to management's recommendation at this point and leave everything the way it basically started out. And of course, we at this juncture because Lake Wiley has to get their spoken for amount, which is fine. But then to start going in and cherry picking again to take money from Clover. You know, if Clover was in here tonight, I don't think we can stand here.
You're in here.
Well, I can't tell Clover to their face, I'm gonna take 50,000 and give 10 to Fort Mill, 15 to Fort Mill and more to TKK and some to York. You know, I just can't do that. I don't see how any of us can look that municipality or that town in the eye and say, we're taking money from you to give to other people just because I feel like it's being done to pander to vote. Because the support that's gonna come for this, moving this money around, is gonna come from York. It's gonna come from Rock Hill. It's gonna come from Fort Mill. So at this point, you know, I won't be supporting this motion to move these funds around and take it away from Clover, town of Clover.
So
Any other discussion?
Absolutely. So I represent the town of Clover, and I want to just read some numbers out to you. These were some of the numbers from management's allocation, and I'm not going to say where they were allocated to. I'm just going to read some numbers to you. $116,598, $213,374, $457,381, $188,571. Those numbers have been thought out. And we went into a workshop to come up with a formula, something that worked, something that was right, something that would get us down the road at least another year before we bring this up again. What's being proposed tonight is a big round number, 10,000, 15,000, and those numbers are not thought out. And you can tell, because if you use a formula with a big number and you use a formula to divvy that out to different municipalities, you're not gonna get big round numbers. So I'm gonna be in agreement with Councilman Roddy. You know, I don't know that any of these numbers are right for these municipalities from the start. I can tell you they're not, but we're not gonna hash that out tonight. What we need to do, though, is we need to approve, in my opinion, what management recommended, because it's a lot closer than just throwing money out to people. And I mean, I look at this as I'm opposed to politics, and I look at this as politics. I don't think it's fair to the town of Clover. I don't think it's fair to give money to a municipality without justification. I don't think any of that's fair. So I'm not going to be in favor of changing management's recommendation.
Yeah.
Mr. Audette?
Yeah, so when I propose this, based on the rec funding, the rec committee's calculations based on growth in the size of the number of people that are living there, the numbers were much different than what like Fort Mill and TDK would have gotten out of that. The number of people in Fort Mill and TDK is about the same number as the Rock Hill area. I mean, we're looking at roughly, I think it was 29 or 30% of the overall, or probably even larger. I don't have the exact numbers ahead of me. But adjusting this at least gets it closer to the calculations from the rec committee. It's still shorting them. They're still short from what they asked for.
You're preaching to the choir.
You know, I mean, it's still short. But at least it gets Fort Mill and TDK closer to the number. Again, it brings York, I think, a little closer to their number. And I think it brings Rock Hill a little bit closer to their number. Again, they don't get everything they've been asking for, but I think at least it balances it out somewhat. That was the purpose of why I put this forth.
Any other discussion?
Beating a dead horse if I say anything, so I'm just gonna hush.
Well, I think, personally, I think we went to a workshop on this after folks went back and forth on how they wanted to proceed with it, and I think it's a little bit, I think this is, no other options were brought up at the workshop, and so it's just a little bit disingenuous. But the whole reason we sent it to workshop, and I think it's my time to speak, so I don't think I count. We sent it to workshop because the majority of council wanted to refer it after we'd already talked about it. Remember, it was the fourth time on the budget, and then it goes to workshop. And one of the issues was to address the disparity because of the population numbers, and are we going to come up with a formula? And there's no other proposal that's presented there other than where we were at the start. So I think this is it's not going to be the best place. I think this gets us to a closer place where the population has a component to it, but I just think that it's disingenuous for us to have to defend this when this is kind of one of those things that we need to move on from. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries 5-2. Move now to committee and other reports. Justice and Public Safety Committee meeting. The Honorable Chairman Tommy Atkins.
All right.
You had to laugh at that too, didn't you? I'm just kidding.
I don't know about this honorable thing. The Justice and Public Safety Committee met on Wednesday, June 21st, 2023, with Allison Love, Debbie Cloninger, and myself in attendance. First discussion was about attending committee meetings and workshops virtually. Management presented the information. A motion was made by Allison Love and seconded by Debbie Cloninger to not go forward due to the cost, and the motion carried. Second item was management made the recommendation to make changes to the appearances before council. A motion was made by Allison Love and seconded by Debbie Cloninger to approve these recommendations from management, and the motion carried. Our third item of discussion was discussions regarding the agreed upon procedures for the special tax districts. No action was taken. And we decided in order to improve communications with the fire service, a meeting will be set for every 4 to 6 weeks, having them on Wednesdays. And I've already set a meeting for this coming Wednesday.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. We moved out to Planning and Zoning Committee meeting. The Honorable Happy Birthday Girl Chairwoman Debbie Cloninger.
Okay. The Planning and Zoning Committee met July 10th. Present were council members Roddy and Love. We discussed raising the commercial building height to 60 feet. Planning Department discussed that local municipalities had that general height, the 60 feet. Councilman Love stated that surrounding counties had averages of 35 feet in height and with an opportunity to mitigate. So that was just a discussion. So then we had a discussion regarding connectivity, the connectivity ordinance. That is very complicated and we're still discussing. Okay, Planning Director presented some changes to the TIA ordinance. And so basically staff what they did was they consolidated the tiers of a TIA so that there would be fewer small sites that had to do a TIA study. Then the staff presented a Regent Park flood study that is an update to the 100-year flood area. The committee voted unanimously to recommend this study to council. Staff proposed that the rural estate zoning code, which is currently 5 acres under the agricultural zoning code, be changed to 3.5 acres. This reduction would also eliminate some uses. Committee voted unanimously not in favor of the new code. Then staff brought recommendations concerning expansion of the types of violations that would cause a rezoning to include nuisances and stormwater, etc. No vote was taken. This was a discussion.
Thank you, ma'am. Finance and Operations Committee, the Honorable Chairwoman Allison Love.
Not chairwoman.
Of that committee, you are.
Oh, yeah. It's been a long night. I'm still a wreck from having to even do that one rezoning. Okay. So the Finance and Operations Committee met tonight, and present were Councilman Audette, Councilman Atkins, and we had several orders of business. The first was to consider an applicant for the Keep York County Beautiful Board, and Isabella Bertelli was recommended for a first term for District 7. Second was the Flint Hill Fire Tax District Board, and we recommended the reappointment of Scott Kendrick for a second term and the reappointment of Ira Colthart for a second term. York County Cultural and Heritage Commission, we made the recommendation to reappoint Margaret Parson Willens for a second term. That is District 5. And the York County Natural Gas Board, there was one person who was as listed as an applicant who did not mean to apply, so we made the recommendation to appoint Joel Wood to fill an unexpired term on that board. And then we also were given a brief Finance and Operations Committee meeting finance update. And one of the most important things that our CFO said was that we will end the fiscal year in strong financial standing. So.
Thank you, Ms. Love. We move now to citizen concerns, and I have to always hand it to the folks who stick out and stay through a long, arduous meeting, but I'll recognize Tim Veek. I see Stephanie here and some partners to give us some information from Habitat for Humanity.
Thanks again for the opportunity to speak tonight. And I know it's been a long meeting, so I'll try to be on point. I am speaking on behalf of Habitat for Humanity of York County. I'm Tim Veek, the Executive Director and CEO, and we do have folks here supporting Habitat. And really, want to come to talk to you about the home affordability crisis that we have in York County. Just a couple of quick notes about Habitat. We're having to be celebrating 35 years of existence in York County, and this is not all the data about our organization, but some highlights. We've built 82 homes and helped repair over 200 plus homes all throughout the county, in every part of the county over that time. And do I advance this? Yes, I do. Okay. So we do this motivated by faith. We want to bring people together. That comment was mentioned earlier today. We want to bring people together to build homes, communities, and hope. There's just some information here about the financial impacts that happen through home ownership through our program for folks who have partnered with us in that manner, and also about the benefits of home repair and stabilizing the affordable housing stock in our community. Again, the reason why I'm here today is just to talk about the affordable housing crisis that we have. And in order to do that, I just want to establish some quick context. So some of the information I'm going to share is, this is from the Piedmont Realtors Association, and just some basic numbers just so everybody's aware of kind of where we are. So right now, well, as of January 2023, the median sales price in York County was $375,000. If you look at this next slide, this kind of shows the growth in the median sales price over the last 10 years. And you can see in the last 3 years, the median sales price has increased by $150,000, kind of at an unsustainable rate. What this next slide shows is and this again was as of January, the Housing Affordability Index. Basically, the lower the number, the worse the affordability. So we've had a 21% decrease in affordability in York County in just the last year. This slide is from a study done by SC Housing, Palmetto State Housing Study. And what it speaks to is showing that the darkest blue areas are the areas that are growing the fastest and projected to have the most growth in the state. And that growth is only exacerbating the housing affordability in those areas. So you can see York County is projected to grow by over 25% by 2030. So we have a big problem on our hands. This is real quick couple of slides just to show that there was a time when you could actually get a house for under $100,000. And it's been a while, but it's been decreasing by 14.8% a year since 2014. In our area, which is the Piedmont, 2% of houses sold in 2022 fit that criteria. If you've seen any of those, they probably aren't habitable, and they usually require rehabbing and are then flipped for a significantly amount more money. So the affordability challenge, we would talk about people who are cost burdened in York County. What does that mean? Using the common standard as designated by HUD, Housing and Urban Development, that's looking at folks who pay more than 30% of their income for housing related costs. We're going to look at a couple of other slides just to kind of show some details about the county. So overall, folks who are homeowners, and that's why Habitat focuses on home ownership, folks who are homeowners tend to fare better, but still, folks with mortgages in York County, still 20% of folks with mortgages who are homeowners are cost burdened. And renters in York County, 46.8% are cost burdened. So nearly half the county is cost burdened when, on the rental side. However, this still doesn't show the true story and impact, because when you look at just countywide data, it can, and this slide talks about, it can blur the fact that there's concentrated levels of cost burden, households who are cost burdened within the county. So when you look at this next slide, you can look at York County, and you can see on the left are folks who are homeowners who have mortgages, and kind of go right down the middle, looking at Lake Wiley, Clover, York area, there's a high level of concentration of cost burden households over the 32% threshold for homeowners. And then on the right side, you can see in most of the populated areas, but pretty heavily in the center of the county, 53% of renters are cost burdened. And that's in places that all of y'all represent. So just want to highlight that. Again, these next two slides show that this is probably a no-brainer, but folks who make under $35,000 a year in York County, 2% of those folks are cost burdened. And then when you look at folks who make between $35,000 and $75,000, it's still 34%. And that's folks who make anywhere from $16.80 an hour to like $36 an hour. So those are median income families who are still struggling to afford to live. I should say, oops, let me back up real quick. That's the context kind of leading up to the present. When you look at where we are as of last month, there was a 9% increase in the median home sales price year over year. So right now, as of June, this came right off the Realtor.com website yesterday. Home home sales, the median home price in York County is at $400,000. If you want to, some people could assume that's happening in one or two places in the county. Might be the scariest slide I'll show, is look at the distribution across the county, and particularly look at Clover, $507,000 is the median listing price. York, $450,000. Newport, $438,000. Sharon is $257,000. Smyrna, $430,000. So you can see that we are quickly going in a direction that's unsustainable for a large segment of the population. So where does that bring me? The reason why I'm here today is to request the county, and particularly speaking to the county council, to maybe give direction to the county staff, and also to say that we'd like to work together in this, is to begin to open up avenues to expand access to affordable home ownership and affordable housing in York County. One of the ways that can be done is through what's called the Home Investment Partnership Program. That's federal dollars that can be accessed by our county for the building of, or preserving or rehabilitation of homeownership housing, often in partnership with nonprofits like Habitat. I'm not going to go into all the details. It is federal funds, and there's a lot of details and guidelines to that. They can all be referenced here through the HUD website. But what I do want to highlight is this is just a rough estimate that you can get off of that website. Roughly right now, this will not solve the whole affordability problem in the county, but it's a step in the right direction. Our county would, based on the estimates from this calculator from HUD, would receive $736,000 a year if we were to begin to tap into these funds. The way you do that is through a participating jurisdiction, and there's criteria around how you establish a participating jurisdiction, which I don't have time to detail in the next 2 minutes and 50 seconds. But suffice it to say, there is a mechanism for doing that. These are all the counties that last year accessed home dollars, and you can see the funds that went to those counties to help further access to home affordability. I think the sad news is that York County is not on this list. This is the timeline for how you can go about becoming a participating jurisdiction through a consortia and what is required to do that. I do think some of these maybe have been postponed due to the COVID pandemic and some things being waived. Suffice it to say, there is a schedule and system, and we're kind of behind the 8 ball if we wanted to do this year, but I think there's no better time than the present to begin to start and how we can maybe partner together in doing that. This is what's projected for the upcoming year in terms of consortia, and I think there's still maybe other entities that will be receiving funds, but these are the larger consortias and what they're going to get in 2023 fiscal year. I listed, just for FYI, clearly not Michigan and Texas, but the North Carolina counties that are also accessing these funds, many of them in the Charlotte metro region as well. So we're kind of in an island in terms of not accessing these funds. This is an example, and I'm not going to read through this verbatim, about how Habitats utilize home funds around the country. It talks about the numbers of dollars that have been spent through home over the years. Habitat does focus on home ownership, and just in South Carolina, there are a number of affiliates, Habitat affiliates, who do receive home dollars in partnership with their local participating jurisdictions, and it ranges from $50,000 and up per home, and it ranges anywhere from $150,000 to $300,000 a year per affiliate of those who are receiving funds. And I should say that home dollars can be used by other nonprofit developers as well, so it's not only Habitats that would benefit. These are other examples. I don't have time to read through those now, but that's there for your reference. This is just an example of what are some of our sister counties doing. Horry County has established a home consortium to bring more affordable housing to its community. That house that you see there is actually a Habitat home that was funded in part through those funds. This is an example of what Horry County is doing to access funding for their community in the last couple of years. Another source of funding that can be used to help revitalize communities and help provide decent housing is community development block grant funds. This is the list of all the counties that received those funds last year. York County is not included on that list, and I think it would be great to see those funds be accessed as well. This is an example of Greenville County as another county that's kind of working hard to address housing issues, and they've done a great job of accessing several different programs related to housing. I'm running really short on my time, so the last 2 slides, this is kind of what's coming up for 2023 and all the different municipalities, whether that be cities or counties, who are accessing dollars from the federal government related to making affordable housing and neighborhood revitalization more available in their community. So I'm here on behalf of Habitat to say we'd like to work with the county to help make this happen because hopefully I already highlighted the need is astronomical and it's only getting worse at a very rapid pace. I think I'm done.
Thank you, Tim. We appreciate you coming out and for waiting so long and being so patient to be heard. And we do have the printout of your presentation so council can review it as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We don't usually ask questions, but
Yep.
that your non-agenda comment? Thank you, Tim.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, we move now to council non-agenda comments, recognizing we have a hefty executive session.
Well, I'll jump right in. I'll just quickly say, I know we had some discussion about looking at other boards that have more than 7 members. I like to kind of go on the record to say we need to have that discussion in the very, very near future because I feel really bad, even though I voted against it and it went through. I don't want people to feel like we were picking on the library board, but it gives me that feeling that if we don't look at other boards that have more than 7 members, then that's going to be the takeaway for the general public is that we picked on the library board and we went after the library board. So it's my plea and my wish to have that discussion in the very near future to look at any and all boards who have more than 7 members. And that's it.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
Counselor?
so I'm going to also say I agree with you, Bump. We definitely need to go ahead and schedule that out so we can look at other boards and committees that have at-large seats. Absolutely.
Mr. Adkins?
I'd just like to tell everybody I urge them to go see the movie Sound of Freedom, sort of make a lot of us problems a little bit smaller. Once you watch it, it's very good.
Anybody else? You got to do better than that. You got to read it out for me.
I got it. All right, any other comment?
Yeah, we haven't,
Okay.
I need you to add one thing. What is it? Personnel matter.
Okay.
That one's only going to take 2 minutes, is what I was told. It popped up.
Okay.
You have to
All right.
be specific about the personnel matter.
Well, he can't. So you need to tell us what the motion needs to be.
Yeah, what?
Personnel matter involving the clerk of court's office?
Okay. All right. Okay,
Yeah.
so we need to go into executive session. The first matter being contractual matters, economic development, project updates. The next matter being receipt of legal advice, fire agreement upon procedures. The next one, personal matters, county manager, county attorney, clerk of council evaluations. The next item is contractual matters, receipt of legal advice, pennies for project Highway 57. And the last item is personal matter of clerk of council update and review.
Clerk of court, I'm sorry.
Clerk of court. Thank you.
Do we have a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, let's take 5 minutes, take a break, and we'll come back in here and do our executive session. We are out of executive session. No action was taken. Do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.